Chapter 633, System Version 6.0. When everything was said and done, Michael flicked his wrist. A wooden box materialized before every single on the table. "Open it," said Gaia. The subordinates stared at the wooden box in front of them for a moment. Silence fell over them. Eventually, they opened the wooden box to see a dull-looking silver chain with a spider pendant attached, a ring, a tiny tubular object, and a small arch energy crystal. "Wear the chain and put on the ring," Gaia instructed them. After they all did what they were told, Gaia began to explain the reason why they gave a pendant and a space ring. "That spider pendant attached to the chain lets us see what you see." Gaia waved her hand as handheld mirrors appeared before each subordinate. They noticed the mirrors showing what they were seeing. Some of them moved the spider around. The scenery in their mirrors changes. Except for Maxine, who knew about the spiders, the rest seemed stunned. "You are to wear the spider all the time except when you want privacy. But you have to inform Azazel. How to contact him. Put the earpiece into your ear." Gaia opened her hands, showing the earpiece to everyone. The subordinates nodded before taking the earpiece from the box and putting it in their ears. "Place your hand on the arch energy crystal." The subordinates one by one grabbed the glowing blue crystal lying on the wooden box's bottom. Sadie was the first to feel a storage sensation in her body when she touched the crystal. A few seconds later, her eyes went wide. A sliver of arch energy coursed through her veins. She felt a connection to the space ring on her finger and the earpiece she just put in her ear. Unlike the rest, Sadie knew the feeling of arch energy. So without a doubt, she could tell she had just felt arch energy within the void line. Although the others took longer to feel the strange sensation, they all shared the same stunned expressions on their faces. "This device will let you communicate with Azazel." Gaia's words sounded inside their heads. The words of Gaia felt like a whisper, but the subordinates heard each of them clearly. It took them several seconds before they realized the words coming from the device in their ear. "Now, I know most of you aren't familiar with the feeling of arch energy, but try to focus your mind to send a message. Feel the connection with the earpiece. Speak your names." "Sadie." Sadie sent a message, looking at Azazel. When the old butler nodded, a gentle smile formed on her face. One by one, all the subordinates successfully sent a message. Of course, some failed, but Gaia didn't move on until everyone successfully spoke into the earpiece. "They did it, my lady," Azazel informed Gaia. There was a tinge of pride in her heart. Although it was such a simple menial task, Gaia very well knew the grave importance of communication. With the silver chain and earpiece, the subordinates could contact Azazel anytime. "You will be called this day every month. Under no circumstances are you to miss this gathering unless you are dead." Gaia's voice turned cold for a moment. "Since you are all kings and queens, you need ministers and minions to do your bidding. From the next gathering, you can submit profiles of people you want to recruit to us. Also, this goes without saying, if you utter a single word about the Order or the Dark Lord, I will make you wish you were dead." They all could feel the sudden chillness in the air. "If you have any questions or thoughts, you are free to speak now," said Gaia. After several seconds, she sat on her throne. Tiberius cleared his throat. He stood up. "Dark Lord, what should we do about Quintus and the assassin who killed Heinberg?" The subordinates turned their gazes toward the Dark Lord, expecting to hear his answer. "That's your first task," Michael slowly said. "Coordinate with your fellow member, locate Quintus, and only if you can't kill him, contact Azazel for backup." Michael raised his finger. "Training wheels are off from today." Tiberius nodded with absolute killing intent in his eyes. After Tiberius sat down, Corey rose from her chair. "This chapter upload first at Novelbin.net. If you want to read more chapters, please visit Novelnext.com to experience faster update speed. Pardon me for my dumbness, Dark Lord, but what are our tasks?" Corey scratched her head. She was proud and delighted to receive titles, but they didn't tell her what to do next. To be honest, Corey had no idea at all. "You're the Queen of the Seas. Do whatever you like and can to strengthen your domain. That goes for everyone. Strengthen yourselves and your domains. Be better. Be the best." Michael's thick voice resonated in the hall. With his words, they started to have some idea about their future. Coordinate with your fellow members when you need help or others' expertise. Remember this. Michael rose from his throne. He glanced at the subordinates briefly for a few moments. The people around you at the table are your family. Etch that into your brain deep. Got it? The subordinates bopped their heads up and down. If you don't have anything to say, you can leave, said Gaia. They all remained silent without anything to say. Thus, Michael willed the system to teleport them back to where they came from. After the subordinates left the crypt, Michael exhaled deeply before collapsing onto the throne. Silence fell for several seconds. Michael looked at the empty hall and the empty chairs around the table. He felt proud. A strange sense of achievement rose in his heart. That went okay. Michael removed his mask, threw it on the table and put his legs atop. Azazel! Michael called for his demon butler. He walked around the throne to stand before Michael's eyes. You are more important to us and the Order. I hope you know that, said Michael. Although Michael's soul bounded Azazel with him, the demon had his own personality and thoughts. He wasn't a robot programmed to serve him until the end of times. It would be troublesome if the demon butler thought he was not as important as the other subordinates. So Michael wanted to clear things up before the demon butler could think like that. I am honored, my lord. Azazel's words and the look in his eyes satisfied Michael. Return to the dark forest and monitor the subordinates. As you wish, bowed Azazel. After dismissing Azazel, Michael waved his hand as a stack of gold coins appeared on the table. The mound of gold coins lit the place with its radiant gold light. What are you going to do? Asked Gaia. Judging by the stacks, Gaia could tell there were at least 10 million gold coins. Her guess was spot on. The mound of gold coins contained exactly 10 million gold coins. Turning them into power, Michael calmly said. Since they were alone in the hall, he didn't use his demonic voice. Under Gaia's curious gaze, Michael waved his hand. A bright light shot out of his body, enveloping the coins. The light swallowed the coins, and in a few moments, the light disappeared along with all the coins. Gaia was startled, but when she turned her head, she saw a smile on his face. System, how long will it take you to upgrade yourself? Finally, the system exclaimed as though it was tired of waiting. 3 hours. The host will not be able to use the system during this time. Said the system, do it. Michael ordered the system. Coupled with the 300,000 badass points, the 400,000 badass points he got from converting the gold coins added a total of 700,000 badass points. As soon as Michael ordered, the badass points dropped from 700,000 to 100,000. Michael grinned despite losing the badass points and spending 10 million in a snap of time. He felt relieved to upgrade the system finally. Upon seeing the gold coins disappear, Gaia creased her brows. Whatever you did with the coins, I hope it's worth it. It is. Michael wrapped his hand around Gaia's slender waist. He pulled her closer while slowly removing her hand with the other hand. What are you doing? Chuckled Gaia. This chapter upload first at Novelbin. Net, if you want to read more chapters, please visit Novelnext. Com to experience faster update speed. I think you know what I am going to do, he whispered in her ear. Although Gaia wasn't a blushing type, his words created a tinge of redness on her cheek. Upon seeing the blush, Michael pulled her even closer. He could feel her gentle breath and the sweet fragrance. Not wanting to waste the moment, Michael gently kissed Gaia on the forehead. Inch by inch, Michael lowered his lips until he met her lips. Gaia closed her eyes. Her hands explored every inch of his body. When she reached his head, she grabbed his hair and pulled his face closer to the point both of them enjoyed a heavenly kiss in peace and silence. After 3 hours, Michael and Gaia returned to their room. As Michael leaned back on the bed, Gaia and Nightmare slept peacefully beside him. Nightmare curled himself into a ball under Gaia's gentle embrace. Michael wanted to sleep, but he simply couldn't. The excitement to rummage through new spells kept him awake. The system upgrade is completed. Current system level 6. 0. The host can now have up to 25 subordinates. The host has received 1 free spell token as a gift for upgrading the system. The host will not get a fixed amount of experience points when slaying a cultivator. Arch Sensing Stage equals 0 Foundation Stage equals 5,000 Body Refining Stage equals 15,000 Body Strengthening Stage equals 50,000 Core Formation Stage equals 1,000,000 Core Strengthening Stage equals 2,000,000 Soul Refining Stage equals 3,000,000 Fusion Stage equals 5,000,000 Half. Immortal equals 1,000,000. Immortal equals 2,000,000. Michael creased his brows, looking at the experience points. The system reduced the number of points he would kill after each kill. As a result, leveling up had become harder than ever before. His smile froze on Michael's face. "What the heck is this system?" Michael asked the system. There was spite in his voice. "Calm down, host. The system reduces the points so the host can cross the heavenly tribulation with a 0% chance of dying." Michael's shock and bitterness somewhat calmed down after hearing the system. The system has enabled subordinate kill experience points back. Now the host will receive experience points every time a subordinate kills a cultivator. New spells have been unlocked in the system store. As though the system wanted to change his mind towards something good, it reminded him of the new spells. Just like the system planned, hearing about the new spells made him smile again. Wasting no time, Michael immediately opened the system store to buy new spells. The novel will be updated first on this website. Come back and continue reading tomorrow, everyone. Chapter 634. Buying new spells. When he opened the store, glowing blue cards appeared before his eyes. Michael swiped the cards telepathically. On top of the old spells, Michael saw several new ones. But, to be honest, he had a hard time choosing one. It had been some time since he had bought a new spell. As a result, he couldn't contain his excitement, but Michael didn't let his excitement get the better of him. So Michael decided to expand all the spells and compare them before choosing one. Spell name: Guardian Blade Upgradable. Yes effect: creates a magical floating sword that'll protect the caster for a period of time. Current level: the sword will protect the caster for 2 minutes. Anyone above the core formation stage will receive 50% less damage. Spell name: Lightning Shield Upgradable. Yes effect: creates a barrier of electric energy. Current level: Lightning Shield will absorb any magical and physical attacks below or at the body strengthening stage. Spell name: Silene's Upgradable. Yes effect: creates a bubble in which time is stopped for a short period. Current level: the bubble lasts for 5 seconds. The area of effect is a 0.5-meter radius. Spell name: Starfire Upgradable. Yes effect: creates a weapon of fiery energy. Current level: the fire sword's duration is 1 minute. Anyone above the core formation stage will receive 50% less damage. Spell name: Demon's Wrath Upgradable. Yes, this chapter upload first at NovelBin.net. If you want to read more chapters, please visit NovelNext. Calm to experience faster update speed effect. Creates a beam of powerful dark plasma energy. Current level: the beam can be fired from one hand. Regardless of defenses, anyone at or below the core formation stage can be killed instantly. Anyone above the core formation stage will receive 65% less damage. Spell name: Alteraro Vulgecto Upgradable. No effect: creates a demonic portal to a different dimension. Spell name: Eyes of Doom Upgradable. Yes effect: an ability to store dark energy in the eyes and emit it in black optic blasts. Current level: capable of penetrating through anyone at or below the core formation stage instantly. A strange feeling of excitement rose in his heart. He couldn't choose a spell without having second thoughts. Every single spell seemed so powerful and useful, even the Guardian Blade and the Starfire. Which one? Michael asked himself. After a deep thought, Michael waved his hand, removing the Guardian Blade and Starfire. Although those two spells seemed powerful, especially after he upgraded them, Michael didn't see any use for them at the moment. Why should he have a sword made of fire or energy when he could use Doombringer and Ignorita? Compared to the rest, those spells looked the worst. The remaining 5 spells floated before his eyes. Each of them was unique, powerful, and had its own uses. Some might look weak at the current level, but Michael knew they would become overpowered once he upgraded them. He could hardly remove a spell among the current 5. He only had 1 ticket to get a free spell, so he did not want to waste it. For a few minutes, Michael imagined him using each and every spell. He created countless scenarios in his mind to test the spells. I can buy scrolls and use portals in the world to move between realms. So I can remove the Alteraro Volgecto. Michael waved his hand as the portal spell disappeared from his sight. As Michael thought, several portals connected to other dimensions and realms. With enough gold coins and contact, anyone could use these portals to travel between the realms. For example, Gaia used such a portal to travel to the fire realm. Unlike the other spells, the portal spell could be substituted by the portals in the world. Hence, Michael chose to remove the portal spell. Afterward, he once again focused on the spells before him. In his ghost persona, he had both offense and defense spells. Additionally, he also possessed the Black Shield to defend himself from physical attacks. However, when it comes to his Dark Lord form, he had 0 unique spells. He had been using ghost spells and betting that his enemies wouldn't escape. In case someone battled with the Dark Lord and escaped, they could eventually connect ghosts to the Dark Lord using the spells. This was a major weakness the Dark Lord had. To rectify this weakness, Michael knew he must buy at least 1 offense and defense spell that was unique to the Dark Lord. His gaze was fixed on the spell named Silenes. Even though the spell had a short duration of 5 seconds and a short area of effect, the spell's effect was a game-changer. With the right weapon and skill, Michael could kill anyone and change the tide of a battle. Simply put, the spell could be his trump card. But what stopped Michael from immediately buying the spell was his lack of a powerful weapon and an offensive spell. Without them, there was no point pausing the time. At least if Michael had a teleportation spell that teleported him regardless of whether he was in a battle or not, he would have bought it. Since it wasn't the case, Michael heaved a sigh and removed the spell from the list. Nonetheless, he decided to buy the spell for sure in the near future. 3 spells were out and 3 spells remained. Among the 3, 1 was a defensive spell, and the rest were offensive spells. His mind once again created scenarios to assess each spell's advantages and disadvantages. Having the responsive shield made the lightning shield redundant, at least at this moment. Also, the responsive shield was invisible. Therefore, connecting Ghost to Dark Lord might be a bit difficult. Besides, the best offense was the best defense. Due to those reasons, Michael removed the lightning shield from the list. Finally, there were only 2 spells before Michael. Spell name: Demon's Wrath Upgradable. Yes effect: creates a beam of powerful dark plasma energy. Current level: the beam can be fired from one hand. Regardless of defenses, anyone at or below the core formation stage can be killed instantly, regardless of defenses. Anyone above the core formation stage will receive 65% less damage. Spell name: Eyes of Doom Upgradable. Yes, this chapter upload first at NovelBin.net. If you want to read more chapters, please visit NovelNext. Calm to experience faster update speed effect. An ability to store dark energy in the eyes and emit it in black optic blasts. Current level: capable of penetrating through anyone at or below the core formation stage regardless of defenses. Anyone above the core formation stage will receive 65% less damage. Upon casting the spells, each would yield the same result as the other. But what differentiated the spells was their appearance. For example, the Demon's Wrath would let Michael fire a blast of dark plasma energy from his hand, while the Eyes of Doom would fire optic laser blasts from his eyes. Now Michael had to decide between the 2 spells, thinking which would make him look cooler. Eyes of Doom knocked the Demon's Wrath out of the park when he imagined himself using both spells. Firing black laser beams from his eyes undoubtedly took the crown from his point of view. With this spell, he didn't even have to raise a finger but just had to look at his opponents. Upon finally deciding, Michael willed the system to use the free token on the Eyes of Doom. Ding, the host has successfully acquired the level 1 Eyes of Doom. Eyes of Doom current range 20 meters. System: what's the cost of buying Silenes? 500,000. Michael's heart skipped a beat when he heard the outrageous price. It made sense given the spell's effect, yet 500,000 seemed too much in his mind. Furrowing his brows, Michael asked the system. "What's the cost of Eyes of Doom?" asked Michael. 500,000. Once again, the system shocked Michael, who heaved a sigh of relief. In case the Eyes of Doom was way cheaper than the Silenes, his heart would have ached for not choosing Silenes despite his reasonings. "I can't wait to test this baby," Michael grinned. Exiting the system, Michael turned his gaze to Gaia. She was still peacefully sleeping with Nightmare in her embrace. He removed the blanket covering his leg up to the knees and walked towards the window. The moonless sky drew his attention. For a few moments, Michael just stared at the dark sky. Eladir. Michael established a connection to contact Eladir. Due to the task of building a teleportation array in the Dark Forest Mansion, Eladir couldn't make it to the gathering. Michael ordered Eldadi to try to finish the array before they returned to Mazeroth. There were only 5 days left in their holidays. After that, Michael had to return to Mazeroth. Not that Michael wanted to graduate from Mazeroth, but he wanted to explore the Ukulun realm. It might be risky, yet if he didn't take this risk, he would lose the chance to unravel more about his enemies. The more he learns about the Sky Hall, the better chance he has of beating them. "Dark Lord," Eladir's voice sounded in Michael's head. Michael sensed a bit of frustration in the dark elf's voice. "How's everything?" asked Michael. "I need more materials, Dark Lord. I can't swing my hands and create a teleportation array just like that." "Work, you piece of shit." Michael heard Eladir kicking something in frustration. Upon hearing the pissed dark elf, Michael decided to cut his conversation short. "Give a list of everything you need to Azazel. I will personally see to it. Finally, some good news. Please, get me those things as soon as possible. I could have bought them, but if I leave this array unfinished, I have to do it again from scratch," said Eladir with way less frustration than before in his voice. "I will look around in the Aqua Palace. If there is a place I can get what you need, it's this place," said Michael. "Watch your back, Dark Lord. Elves might seem pretty and harmless, but they are the vilest evil creatures in the entire world." Eladir warned Michael before Michael ended the communication. After everything was said and done, Michael took a deep breath. He finished everything he had in his mind for the day. Yet one thing remained drilling his mind. "Who are you?" asked Michael, looking at the moonless dark sky. Michael recalled the black-robed woman. A strange sense of familiarity rose in his heart. But, more than anything, Michael wanted to unmask the woman and learn more about her. Chapter 635. Immortal killing weapon. The next day, Michael, Nightmare, and Gaia returned to their VIP room for the last day of the auction with Eve and the Elders. Since Michael spent 8 million on the Ancient Ice Core and 10 million on the banker function, he only had 7 million in his system storage and 4 million in his Grandspire bank account. By the time they reached their room, the arena was overflowing with people. There wasn't a single empty seat in the entire arena. Even the VIP rooms got crowded with various elders. As soon as Michael plunged into his sofa, he activated his thermal vision to look into the Thusian VIP room. To his surprise, there were only silhouettes of men, not any women. "She's gone," Michael mumbled under his breath. It was a good thing Layla left the Aqua Palace early. After buying a full skeleton of a dragon, many rogues and nobles might target her regardless of her cultivation stage. She was a big thing in Elon, but in Ar, where every prominent family had at least a fusion stage cultivator, her life would be in danger if she outstayed her welcome. Not to mention the Golden Prince, who failed to buy the dragon skeleton even after trying to use his family background. "Any plans to buy something else today?" asked Eve. "Depends on the items," Gaia simply shrugged. "You have something in mind?" Eve turned her head to look at Michael. "No one knows what they will show today. They keep the last day items tightly lid." Michael couldn't care less about the auction anymore. Even if they showed priceless items, he simply lacked the coins to buy them. He doubted he could buy something for 7 million coins. Besides, Michael came to the auction just for entertainment. Now that he had given the subordinates a roadmap of what to do, He didn't have anything for himself to do other than pass his time traveling around R. He leaned back, staring at the empty grass field. Michael canceled all the noises around him, including the chit-chatter between Gaia, Eve, and Nightmare. Several minutes later, Rixton finally appeared in the sky. "Ladies and gentlemen," his raspy voice echoed through the arena. The crowd instantly stopped their chatter almost simultaneously. Silence fell over the arena for a couple of minutes. They all simply watched Rixton look around the ground. A glimmer of satisfaction emerged in the old man's eyes. Finally, Rixton raised his hand. "Let the final day of the Aqua auction begin." The sound of Rixton's voice, louder beyond human limit due to the arch-energy. When he dropped his hand, the iron pillar slowly emerged from the ground. To everyone's surprise, they saw a piece of yellowish bone atop the pillar. "Ulna," Michael mumbled to himself. Although the bone had several chips and looked ancient, there was no doubt in Michael's mind. The bone was an ulna. Whether it belonged to a human or another race member, Michael did not know. Compared to the dragon skeleton, the energy radiation coming from the ulna bone was on another level. If the energy radiated by the dragon skeleton was a pond, the energy coming from the ulna was an ocean. At the same time, Michael noticed countless runes glow in the ground around the bone. The runes harmlessly dispersed the energy radiation. Otherwise, the commoners below the core formation stage would choke to death. "An immortal's bone," Gaia gasped in shock. Everyone glared at the bone without moving their gazes. But only a few like Gaia could recognize the bone's origin. This chapter upload first at Novelbin. Net, if you want to read more chapters, please visit NovelNext.com to experience faster update speed. What's with these people and bones? Michael creased his brows. This was the second time Michael saw bones startling the crowd. Unknown to Michael, the Aqua Palace sent their treasure hunters to the treacherous ocean and to the demon's grave. Both these places were basically ancient graveyards. They found the dragon's skeleton in the treacherous ocean and the immortal bone in the demon's grave. It was a dangerous expedition. The Aqua Palace lost several powerful men. But thanks to the Arctic Hall of Sea Folks, the Aqua Palace had no lack of powerful people. Unlike the cultivators on the land, the Sea Folks avoided wars. As a matter of fact, the Sea Folks only had one war several thousand years ago. But that war was nowhere close to the great wars the humans, elves, or any other race living on the land had gone through in the number of casualties. Each war put the cultivators on land several hundred years behind the Sea Folk. This was the major reason why the Sea Folks had countless fusion stage cultivators, while they were such a rare commodity on the land. Many curiously waited for Rixton to explain. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is an arm bone of an immortal. It contains 20 times more energy than the dragon skeleton. As some of you might know, that's not what makes this bone or any bone of an immortal a diamond among artifacts." Rixton paused for a moment to let the people guess what made a bone of an immortal so special to the point it would cause war between kingdoms. Michael turned his gaze to Gaia. But before she could answer Michael, Rixton continued. "Only a weapon made of immortal bone can kill another immortal." A simple short sentence from Rixton had caused countless gasps in the arena. Those who thought an immortal could not be killed were completely in shock, including Michael. Granted, an immortal would be completely immune to aging, sickness, and injuries. After crossing the tribulation, each step into the half-immortal stage would have a body that's free of all the above. However, that didn't mean they were invisible. Standard weapons leave no cuts as their bodies were simply too strong. But the only weapon capable of killing a half-immortal or an immortal was a weapon made of an immortal's bone. What makes the immortal bone a treasure counted by many is... Rixton raised a finger. Only a weapon made from an immortal bone could kill another immortal. A strange feeling of disappointment emerged in Michael's heart. Michael's mind momentarily went blank. What was the point of calling them immortals if the immortals could be killed? Michael did not have any answer to his own question. System. Do I need an immortal bone to kill other immortals? The host can choose between various weapons and blueprints in the system store. There is no need for you to look for bones unless you have too much money and far less intelligence. Michael creased his brows. hearing the ridicule in the system's voice. He initially thought the immortals could not be killed and only he could slay them with the help of the system. Then, however, he was proven wrong. According to Rixton, anyone with a piece of immortal's bone could slay another immortal. You won't find a little piece of immortal bone, let alone a large piece such as this. It's something even the Aqua Palace could get once a century, if we are lucky. Upon hearing Rixton, many shuddered. They silently gasped. Many who sat in the first row felt their heads throb. Despite the runes, the leaking radiation still affected some people. Hence, Rixton cut his description shorter than he initially planned. He knew the elders from the prominent families didn't need any more explanation. The starting price of this immortal bone is 400 million, 500, 600, 800, 1 billion. This chapter upload first at NovelBin.net. If you want to read more chapters, please visit NovelNext.com to experience faster update speed. 1.3 billion, 1.5 billion. The bids continued to rise rapidly. There was no pause between each bid. None of the elders seemed to let go of the bone. 2 billion, Gaia shouted from the room. 2.2 billion, as Michael expected. Someone else quickly counterbid Gaia. Silence fell over in Voldegard's room. They all stared at the rising bids in utter disarray. Even when they were in their prime, forking out 5 billion was not a simple thing. The minutes passed fast. What started at 500 million climbed so high that the Golden Prince bid 6 billion for the bone. After losing the dragon skeleton to Layla due to a lack of coins that day, the Golden Prince brought all of his wealth with him. Michael looked at the auction, feasting on the grapes beside him. Whenever he threw a grape into his mouth, someone raised the bid by 300 million. Where do you think they got this bone? Asked Michael. Demon's Grave would be my bet, said Eve. Demon's Grave, huh? Michael nodded. After completing his studies in Amazaroth, Michael could visit the Demon's Grave. With the system at his disposal, the most dangerous place in the world might become his treasure trove. Imagine how rich he would be if he found an immortal skeleton. While Michael was in deep thinking, the bid of the bone finally began to slow down. 8 billion. The Golden Prince's voice resonated in the arena. 10 billion. Suddenly, an elder from the Hunt family surprised everyone by raising the bid by 2 billion. Hunt elders. The Golden Prince initiated a conversation with the elders. Before his words, Michael didn't know the ones who counterbid the prince was the Hunts. If we counterbid each other, we can go till tomorrow. Why don't we split the bone in half? Upon hearing the Golden Prince's words, many trembled. Even Rixton stared at the prince's room with wide eyes. For a few moments, the auction stopped as silence took over the arena. Many hoped the Hunt elders would ignore the Golden Prince so they could see a battle between two monstrous powers in R. They were the people who hated auctions with no battles and deaths. But to their shock, the Hunt elders agreed. Only if we can also split the final bid. An elder with a raspy voice spoke. Just like that, the Aqua Palace lost billions. Allowing two bidders to communicate was a massive weakness in the auction process. Michael would make the auction anonymous if he were to open an auction house. That way, no one could sway the auction using family backgrounds or shady deals. But Michael admired the prince for striking such a deal instead of using his family background to threaten the opposition or pour more gold coins into the bid. With this deal, he got half a bone for 5 billion. Although the Golden Prince had gold coins, the Hunt family was not inferior to the Empress or the royal family. They both had almost unlimited gold coins. After all, the Hunts controlled countless businesses and connections with the sea folks themselves. As a matter of fact, they owned 5 gold mines in the Azer continent alone. Finally, the immortal bone went for the price of 10 billion, although it could have simply crossed past 15 billion. The novel will be updated first on this website. Come back and continue reading tomorrow, everyone. Chapter 636. Someone from the past under the crimson-red sky. The castle of vampires stood imposingly. The vampires, adorned in complete black robes from head to toe, patrolled the castle ground in utter silence. Except for the wind's howling, there was no sound across the area. As they patrolled the castle grounds, Saber appeared in the red sky out of thin air. He looked at his vampires for a moment, lingering in the sky. Saber slowly descended towards the castle. Seeing their lord, the vampires halted their steps. Their bodies went rigid as they bowed towards Saber. Despite Saber's young look, handsome face, and gentle smile on that handsome face, he was the most terrifying elder vampire among the elder vampires. Fear gleamed behind the vampire's dark hood. Under their fearful eyes, Saber landed at the doorsteps. As though the door had sensed the presence of Saber, it slowly opened with a creak. "Good to be home," Saber mumbled to himself. He might be staying in the land of the Rick, but his heart always yearned for this castle. No place in this world could come anywhere close to the vampire castle as far as he was concerned. A gentle smile emerged on his face. Saber navigated through the intricate dark corridors and arrived at a gray stone wall. He placed his hand on the wall, sending a sliver of arch energy into it. In a few seconds, the wall trembled, and the gray stones slowly moved inwards, forming an archway to a dimly lit hall. When Saber stepped into the hall, he was welcomed by two cloaked figures on their knees. Their faces were completely hidden beneath their hood. Under the gray rags, grayish-like decayed faces drew a long, rattling breath, as though they were trying to suck something more than air from their surroundings. Saber walked around the hall with his hands behind him. He noticed the bloody tables, blood-stained walls, and jars filled with human organs. The hall would make anyone crinkle their noses or outright throw up. However, Saber didn't even lose his smile. After going a full round around the room, Saber finally halted his steps in front of the two kneeling figures. He jumped up on a steel table, ignoring its blood stains. "Whose idea was it to create a plague in our?" Saber asked. His voice almost sounded like a playful child's. The two cloaked figures slowly raised their heads. Silence fell over them. "I asked you a question." His playful tone contained a hint of killing intent. The two cloaked figures shuddered. Eventually, a growling voice of a woman came from one of the cloaked figures. "Lord Nello ordered me to create the plague, Elder Saber." The cloaked figure shivered. "Is that so?" Saber slightly tilted his little head. But I didn't want to," the cloaked figure panicked. "Why is that?" asked Saber. "Because Elder Saber hasn't told me to." This chapter upload first at Novelbin. Net. If you want to read more chapters, please visit Novelnext. Com to experience faster update speed. Saber's grin grew wider. "Good answer." Saber's voice was stark contrast to the cloaked figure. Saber turned his gaze to the cloaked figure named Nello. "Nello, why did you order her to create this plague? If this old memory of mine serves me right, I didn't tell you to do so." Once again, silence enveloped the hall. No one uttered a word to break the silence. Eventually, Saber's chilling laughter cut through the silence. "I turned you to do one simple task, follow my orders. Is that difficult to do, Nello?" asked Saber. His voice was full of murderous lust. A weak man would have fainted at the mere feeling of the cold aura radiating from Saber. "My lord." Nello's words were abruptly cut short by Saber. With a single look, Saber created a vacuum around Nello's head. Nello gasped for air, yet there was no air around him to breathe. "It's my fault. I put you here to oversee her work, not order her around. Maybe I wasn't clear about that." Saber's brows arched up. He played drums on the steel table nonchalantly. For a few minutes, Saber let Nello gasp for air without lifting a finger. Eventually, when Nello was about to lose consciousness, Saber simply waved his hand. "Ah!" Nello gasped for air. His chest rose up and down, frantically breathing as much air as possible. "Fabia, did you know someone out there found a cure for the plague you created?" Anyone from Giselle would have immediately recognized the name. Fabia Viridius, daughter of former Giselle Senator Viridius. Michael blew the stage with all the senators of Giselle on it 7 months ago. Everyone, including Michael, thought Fabia had died in that explosion along with her father. She would have died if it wasn't for Saber, who rescued her and turned her into a vampire. Before that, Saber funded Fabia's experiments on Flamefare, almost killing Titus and Optimus. The major weaknesses all the vampires had were sunlight and thirst for blood. Saber wanted to change that. Hence, he handpicked some of the genius brains in the world and made them work for him one way or another. Among the geniuses, Fabia was the smartest. Before Michael blew the stage with her on it, she was on the verge of a breakthrough. Her brutal experiments included people native to the southern continent and cultivators. Now that she was turned into a vampire and given a portal to travel between the southern continent and Flamefare, she had a large victim pool at her disposal. No one in Flamefare knew Fabia was controlling their duke, and Saber controlled Fabia. Simply put, Saber was controlling Flamefare for decades. But Flamefare was one of the kingdoms indirectly controlled by the vampires. Every kingdom in the world had at least one vampire among them, controlling the kingdom from the shadows. That was how the vampires stayed in the shadows for such a long time. Whenever some adventurer or a scholar stumbled upon something vampire-related, they would immediately kill them before. Surprise and shock glistened in Fabia's eyes under the dark hood covering her head. This chapter upload first at Novelbin.net. You can speak freely, Fabia. Seeing Fabia stutter in fear, Saber said, smiling at her. It wasn't my best work, my lord. Lord Nello only gave me a week. Any oblivious man would have been startled by her words. In a mere 1 week, Fabia created something that almost brought down the most powerful continent in the world. Suppose Michael hadn't intervened, Nello's plan would have been a success. Unfortunately, Michael threw a huge wrench in Nello's plan. If Nello had done the same a few months ago, Saber would have killed him instantly. However, everything changed. The vampires were no longer a myth. A journalist, with the help of a guardian, exposed them with evidence. Although it was the Royal News who published an article about the vampires, Saber had a feeling someone else puppeteered everything from behind. Was it the same person who sent a threatening letter? Saber couldn't find an answer to the question. Let's just say you had more resources and time. Would you say you can create something no one could find a cure for? Asked Saber. Yes. Fabia didn't even take a few seconds to think about it. She had monstrous trust in her abilities. With Saber's support, she knew she could create a new strain of plague that no one could cure. Her answer satisfied Saber. Her confidence and her abilities were what made her such a valuable asset. Otherwise, Saber would have let her burn to death. Looking at the smile on Saber's face, Fabia sighed inside. The smile symbolized she had evaded a death sentence from her master. But the same could not be said for Nello. To be honest, Fabia wanted Nello out of her way. He was a restriction to her experiments. A few days ago, Nello almost canceled her plan to turn Quintus into a vampire. Took a lot of convincing. That time could have been used to do something else. So Fabia rooted for Saber to kill Nello. As far as she was concerned, he was just an obstacle between her and her success. No matter what, she had to appease Saber so he would bring her father back to life. What are you currently working on? Asked Saber. Although he didn't let his subordinates do whatever they wanted, he gave them an extent of freedom. Unlike Nello, Saber avoided micromanaging his subordinates. As long as they yield results for Saber, he funded their experiments. At the moment, Saber had 12 secret laboratories worldwide, and each one of them had a genius like Fabia working on the betterment of vampires. They were all preparing for the possible war against the Dark Lord. Hybrid soldiers, my lord. I have successfully created an assassin. Now I have put a hybrid warrior on the field and waiting for results. Fabia's voice had a tinge of pride. The assassin she created successfully killed a seasoned warrior such as Heimberg in a matter of seconds. Compared to the assassin, Fabia had more hopes and expectations for the hybrid warrior she had recently created. He was none other than General Quintus. According to Fabia's calculations, turning Quintus into a half-vampire would amplify his abilities by several folds. He could take on an army single-handedly without any use of arch-energy. I want to see him in action. Where did you send your hybrid warrior? Asked Saber. He couldn't help feeling curious. Despite the mysterious one's threat, Saber decided to take a look at Fabia's new creation. He is currently waging war against Kingdom Pre-Rid, my lord. With the vampire genes in his body, Fabia knew Quintus would be turning the tide of the war single-handedly as they were speaking. Even she wanted to see his creation in action. Unfortunately, she had more pressing tasks that needed her absolute focus. Wonderful. I will see him myself. Sabway clapped his hands as he jumped down from the steel table. He stretched his arms, yawning. He turned around to leave the hall. Seeing Saber walking towards the exit, Nello sighed. However, his relief was short-lived. Before stepping into the archway, Saber just snapped his finger as Nello exploded into a bloody black mist. Clean the mess, Fabia. You got what you wished for. So get back to work now. No one will order you around anymore. Chapter 637. The demon commander back on Elon. Noah sat near the compound, meditating. His chest rose and fell with a certain rhythm. He became one with the blowing wind around him. Noah allowed no guards in the Guardian when he meditated. Thus, only the withered trees and flower plants accompanied him. Once in a while, a few snowy flakes gently danced down, swaying in the wind. Whenever a snowflake hit the compound, Noah's eyes would twitch. While Noah was meditating, Yasmin Winston entered the garden. Unlike when she met Ghost, she was in light blue robes void of any armor pieces. She slowly walked towards Noah on the paved pathway. Her sword dangled around her waist every time she took a step. Noah's ear twitched. "My dear cousin," Yasmin said with a playful tone. Thanks to Yasmin, Noah's 2 days of meditation finally came to a halt. He slowly opened his eyes. The clear pond and the red maple tree on the other side was a magnificent view in Noah's mind. In his 2 decades of life, he meditated in several places. Some of these places were dreams for a rogue cultivator. But to Noah, the garden created by his mother was the best place to meditate. It had certain tranquility the other places lacked. Yasmin. Noah looked over his shoulder to see his cousin standing a couple of meters behind him. "So this is what you do in your free time?" asked Yasmin. "Meditation is just as important as cultivation. A calm mind is a weapon of itself." Noah turned around. His eyes were just as calm as the pond behind him. Unknowing to Noah himself, he radiated a powerful aura. Normal cultivators failed to sense this aura, but Yasmin did. It would have been a surprise if she failed to sense it. After all, she was created by one of the elders in Skyhall. Noah and his family were completely oblivious to the fact Yasmin was a clone. The elders created Yasami with one objective in their minds: monitor Noah Winston and report everything back to the Skyhall. Despite being a clone, Yasmin inherited all the memories and habits of the Bodis owner, the real Yasmin Watson. "Where is everyone?" asked Noah. He looked around for a moment, climbing down the steps of the elevated platform he was meditating on. "Inside, discussing the war as usual. Are you going with your father to the front lines?" Yasmin asked nonchalantly. Instead of giving her an answer, Noah walked through the withered plants resulting from the upcoming winter. Usually, by this time, the garden would be filled with chirping birds, squirrels, and beautiful flowers that danced with the wind. However, the cold winter breeze changed the scenery. "War should be our last resort. It's a pity Duke Ivan is so desperate for it. One man's ego is going to destroy so many lives." Noah sighed. His heart ached thinking of all the destruction and deaths a war would bring. When the vampire clan was out there lusting for their blood, humankind and all the races should be united. Yet they were all ignorant and fighting among themselves. Although Noah hated wars, he knew some of them were just inevitable, just like the one between Icefair and Flamefair. Due to Alicia's family, Noah's family had to side with Duke Marvin, the Duke of Pentown, in the upcoming war. Thinking about the war, Noah wished he was at the fusion stage. If he could have stopped the war once and for all. Only because of his search for the Dark Lord killing arrows made by Mazeroth founders did he not get enough time to cultivate. This chapter upload first at Novelbin. Net. If you want to read more chapters, please visit Novelnext. Calm to experience faster update speed. It had been 2 months since Noah had any breakthroughs in his cultivation. He was stuck in the core strengthening stage level 8 and couldn't reach the next level. For a normal cultivator, going without having a breakthrough for a couple of months was nothing. They only leveled up once a year or so. But for Noah it was strange, very strange. Obviously, the Sky Hall noticed Noah's cultivation being halted. So they sent Yasmin to fix the situation. After all, if Noah wasn't strong enough, he wouldn't be able to fight the Dark Lord. And if he didn't, they couldn't get rid of the Dark Lord and control the last man standing. "I need your help with something, Noah," asked Yasmin while following Noah. "What is it?" asked Noah. "In my travel with my mentor, I stumbled upon a pocket dimension filled with treasures, rare artifacts, and valuables. Apparently, it was left behind by a half-immortal. You want me to come with you?" Noah halted his steps. When he turned around, Yasmin nodded. "I know it's sudden, but I really need something in there. If you could help me find it, you can have anything you find there. Since you are my cousin, I won't ask for a share. How about it?" Yasmin winked at Noah. Suppose someone else asked him to venture into an unknown pocket dimension. Noah would have outright rejected them. Furthermore, he would have become suspicious. However, Noah didn't even blink an eye when Yasmin asked him for help. Why? Because Noah trusted his family. For him, his family was everything. Never in a million years would he doubt his family. Yasmin Watson might be his cousin, but she was no different than his little sister Sabrina. He loved them both the same. So when she asked his help, Noah agreed right away without even considering the dangers of venturing into a pocket dimension left by a half-immortal. Even an oblivious man could tell the pocket dimension would be riddled with traps and dangerous. After all, cultivators hardly left behind their stuff with no protection. "Where is this pocket dimension?" asked Noah. With a grin, Yasmin flicked her wrist as a gold ring materialized on her palm. This ring would open a portal to the pocket dimension anywhere. Toss the ring, and boom, instant portal straight to the destination. This is a rare portal ring. The pocket dimension must be ancient. Shouldn't we get more people with us? Noah creased his brows. He had heard about the portal rings from Andreas, but this was the first time he had seen one with his eyes. When Yasmin heard his question, her heart skipped a beat. Her master ordered her to bring Noah alone to the dimension. The Sky Hall elders wanted Noah to get the items left for him. If they brought others, they might get them before Noah. Even if Noah got them first, the chances of Noah sharing those gifts with others were significantly high. And share what we find with others? Hell no. "Where is my cousin, you chicken?" Yasmin punched Noah in the shoulder. Yasmin hid her true intention behind a playful chuckle. Unfortunately, due to Noah's weakness in the family, he couldn't see through her. This chapter upload first at Novelbin. Net, will you at least let me say goodbye to father and mother? Or should I run behind you into the pocket dimension? Noah rolled his eyes. "You have 5 minutes. Yasmin raised her hand, showing 5 fingers. "But what about Norvin? He can help us locate treasures." As a golden Babaru, Norvin possessed a special ability to locate treasures. Ever since Noah picked up Norvin from the forest surrounding Royal Land, the golden Babaru helped him find countless treasures. In other words, Norvin played a huge role in Noah's heaven-defying cultivation speed. Additionally, Norvin could also locate hidden traps and defense arrays. Noah knew these abilities could come in real handy once they were inside the pocket dimension. Allow him. Suddenly, Yasmin heard her master Devdan's voice in her head. The elf was watching Noah through Yasmin's eyes. "What the heck? Bring him." Yasmin nodded as though it was her decision. Noah nodded back and headed towards the mansion, leaving Yasmin behind. Seeing Noah, several maids bowed and greeted him with a smile. Noah nodded back at them, eventually reaching the main hall, where he saw several people gathered around his father. Except for his mother, everyone was in their battle armor. The warriors were divided by their armor colors. One group led by an old man wore icy white armor. They were combined of the Ice Fair's Duke Declan's men and House Bellafort's men. House Winston soldiers were adorned in pale blue armor among the other two. At the same time, Duke Marvin's men wore emerald green armor. When the soldiers saw Noah, everyone stopped their murmurings. Silence fell over them. But the silence was short-lived as the old man greeted Noah with a wide grin. "There he is, my grandson-in-law." The old man's voice was full of life. His neatly combed, ashen hair was tied into a ponytail. Compared to Ethan, who was a muscular man who could destroy a tree with his hands, the old man was skin and bones. An oblivious man wouldn't even spare a second glance at the old man. But his reputation was a stark contrast to his appearance. The old man's friends and family called him Xavier, but his enemies called him the Demon. He was the reason no one dared to wage war against Ice Fair. Even the so-called sword masters of Aragoth feared to battle Xavier one-on-one. The old man was an unstoppable killing machine. One could count the warriors who could fight the old man head-to-head with swords with one hand. In his early years, Xavier fought Maxim Barnes, who was a sword master then, and came close to defeating him. Although the battle ended in a draw, Maxim still had a tinge of fear for the old man in his heart. Even to this date, many sects and academies taught their disciples about Xavier and his sword mastery. "Grandpa!" Noah greeted Xavier with a grin. The old man embraced Noah in a tight hug. Despite his thin stature, Noah felt like he was being crushed by two boulders. Seeing their commander loosening up, the soldiers looked a little bit relieved. "You look a bit exhausted. Are you eating well? It seems my granddaughter is failing at her duties as your fiancée." Xavier turned his gaze toward Alicia. She looked a bit flustered, but she quickly managed to throw a cold glare at her grandfather. Even though the old man was feared across Elon, he was just a doting grandfather to Alicia. Many under Xavier's command still couldn't believe there was a playful side to their demon commander. "He is worried that he's stuck at the core strengthening stage." Norvin leaped onto Noah's shoulder out of nowhere. "That's it? These old bones are stuck at the soul refining stage for years. I'd be happy if you were stuck at the core strengthening stage for a couple of more years. I cannot let a youngster outrun me. I have a reputation to protect. After all, the novel will be updated first on this website. Come back and continue reading tomorrow, everyone." Chapter 638. They stole Ghost's shipment, few hours before the Aqua auction final day. Inside a dimly lit room, a man was tied to a chair and beaten to a pulp. The man's face was bloody and swallowed beyond recognition. Several cuts riddled his body. Anyone with eyes could tell the man was tortured mercilessly. Slowly, the man's eyes closed. Looking at the man's head falling down, a man walked out of the shadows. He was tall, muscular, and had messy brown hair. "Lord Malin." The man turned his head to see a guard entering the room. "Lord Ricky is on his way here," the soldier said. There was a tinge of panic in his voice. "Shit," Lord Malin cussed. He wanted to heal the man in the chair so he could make him feel the pain once more. How did he know this soon? Lord Malin questioned himself. House Bradley had been escorting Ghost's shipment for a year now, and they had never faced a problem until now. The entire shipment was stolen by masked men when the carriage containing the potions and pills were traveling through the forests surrounding Kethin. A group of highly trained masked men ambushed House Bradley and Rainshade Merchant Guild guards and stole everything inside the carriage. Although the masked men managed to kill many guards and escape with the shipment, the guards caught one of the masked men. That unlucky fellow was the one in the chair, getting tortured by Malin himself. As Lord Malin was thinking about how Ricky, the right-hand man of Ghost, learned about the ambush, Ricky entered the dark room with a couple of guards of his own. As usual, they all dressed in complete black, just like their Lord Ghost. Lord Ricky. Due to Ricky's appointment as a minister and his status as Ghost's right-hand man, everyone started to call him Lord Ricky. When Ricky entered the room, he noticed Malin standing there with no shirt to cover his upper body. He was stained in blood. Judging by the man tied to the chair, Ricky could tell where the blood came from. Even if the blood came from Lord Malin himself, Ricky wouldn't give a damn. He was super pissed and on the verge of killing everyone in the room. He wasn't the same gate guard Ricky anymore. After being Ghost's right-hand man and managing his affairs for a long time, Ricky became more dominant and less merciful. Tell me he is one of the men who stole the shipment, asked Ricky. His voice was cold. Killing intent radiated out of every pore in his body. No matter what it takes, he must get back the shipment and fix the situation. That was the only way to escape the wrath of Sister Elia. Yes, Lord Malin nodded. A year ago, Lord Milana wouldn't have spared a second look at a commoner such as Ricky. He was a lord of a noble family and a core-strengthening stage warrior. Now, he had no choice but to show respect to Ricky. Did he tell you who stole the shipment? Asked Ricky. Fortunately, Malin received an answer from the thief after hours of torture. Ricky creased his brows as immense killing intent made the temperature in the room drop by a few degrees. Who? Asked Ricky. Duke Avon. He ordered his men to rob the supplies. They are planning to use the healing potions for themselves. For a moment, Ricky was stunned. But after thinking about where the shipment was going, everything made sense. A few days ago, Lord Ethan from House Winston bought all the healing potions in preparation for the upcoming war against Flamefair. Since Lord Ethan had a good relationship with Master Ghost, Ricky sold all the healing potions along with several other products to Lord Ethan. Ricky gave his word to Lord Ethan that everything would reach his manor in 2 days. Now that the shipment had been stolen, Ricky was enraged. You? Ricky turned his cold gaze to the man in the chair. Looking at his frail state, Ricky flicked his wrist as a healing potion materialized in his hand. This chapter upload first at Novelbin. Net if you want to read more chapters, please visit Novelnext.com to experience faster update speed. Lift his head. Ricky ordered his men. While Lord Malin and his guards were staying behind, Ricky's men lifted up the thief's head. Ricky slowly opened the thief's mouth, pouring the healing potion into it. In a couple of seconds, Ricky emptied every single drop of the healing potion into his mouth. Lord Malin furrowed his brows. He couldn't help wondering what the heck Ricky was doing. He just wasted 15,000 gold coins worth of healing potion on a thief. Where am it? The thief mumbled. Am I dead? The thief was tortured to the point he doubted his reality itself. When his vision cleared, the thief's eyes went wide. Finally, he realized where he was and what he was doing. Not yet, Ricky answered the thief with eyes full of murderous intent. Did Duke Avon order you to steal the shipment? The thief did not answer. Silence occupied the room for a moment. Let me rephrase my question. Did Duke Avon order you to steal the shipment belonging to Master Ghost? The thief trembled, hearing Ricky's cold voice. Ricky's eyes turned predatory. If a gaze could kill a person, the thief would have died by now. The thief recalled what happened to him an hour ago. Every cut, bruise, and punch brought upon him made him shiver. The thief did not want to go through that ever again. To be honest, the thief would rather die than get tortured again. Yes, he did. It's the truth. I swear. The thief screamed. Please let me go. The thief's voice was cut short as Ricky plunged a dagger through the thief's throat. Lord Malin was stunned. He did not even see when Ricky unsheathed his dagger. In a blink of an eye, Ricky ended the thief's life. Blood spurted out of the wound. The thief frantically twitched until his body slowly came to a stop. Ricky pulled out the dagger and cleaned the blood off of his sleeves. Such a mess, Ricky spat. He rubbed his temples. It brought Ricky a headache. Now he had to send another shipment to Lord Ethan. Moreover, he would have to answer Master Ghost and Sister Elia. The latter made him tremble in fear. How could you let this happen, Lord Malin? We cannot go ask for the shipment from Duke Avon. It's our word against his. Ricky exhaled deeply. Sometimes Ricky wished they sent the products in a space ring. That way, they didn't have to rely on escorts and protection. Sending everything in a space ring would be quicker, easier, and more secure. Unfortunately, Ricky knew Master Ghost strictly ordered them not to. Unlike gold coins, the potions and pills put inside a space ring would gradually lose their quality. The other alchemists didn't care about losing 1 or 2% purity. They preferred to send their products stored in a space ring. However, Michael valued quality over everything. He promoted his pills and potions by saying they are 90% pure. He charged the customers for 90% pure products, not for 89 or 88. Michael wouldn't tolerate even a 1% loss in purity. That was why Michael chartered Lord Malon's family to escort the carriages transporting his products despite the drawbacks, such as being vulnerable to ambushes. Lord Malon sighed. He was simply unable to express his bitterness on what had transpired. He lost several good men in the ambush but couldn't care less about them right now. Instead, he was more worried about meeting Ghost. We have to try. We have to try before Master Ghost returns from our, Lord Malon said. I will use everything at my disposal and get to the bottom of it, Lord Malon vowed. You do that, but I have to inform sect leader Claire, Lord Malon panicked. This chapter upload first at Novelbin. Net why? Just give me some time. Hiding this from her will only make this worse, Lord Malon. I know Master Ghost and Sister Elia. Trust me, it's better that way. Judging by Ricky's tone, Lord Malon knew there was no point arguing with Ricky. At that moment, Lord Malon wanted nothing more than Duke Avon's head. If he wanted, he could have purchased those pills and potions for gold coins. There was no need for him to steal the shipment. Fortunately, I have a second batch of shipment ready. I will personally deliver that to Lord Ethan. I will come with you, Lord Malon quickly said. No dash. I insist. Lord Malon cut Ricky's sentence short. Seeing no harm in bringing Lord Malon with him, Ricky sighed, nodding his head. Lord Malon, what should we do with the body? Asked one of Lord Malon's guards. Cut his head and send it to Duke Avon. Before Lord Malon could give an answer to his guard, Ricky answered the guard. If I was him, I would die in the war. Because once Sister Elia learns what he did, she will make him wish he was dead, Ricky said before walking out of the room with Lord Malon. Back in the dark forest, Azazel saw everything that had transpired. He saw everything from how Lord Malon furiously tortured the thief to Ricky ordering the guard to cut the thief's head. A while later, Azazel slightly moved his head to see a red-haired man in his early 40s. The scar from his left eye to his upper lip gave him a villainous look. Looking at crates filled with healing potions, the man smirked. Duke Avon. Azazel coldly uttered the name. The man was the Duke of Flamefair, Avon Jilks. You're a dead man, Azazel said. Although Lord Ethan ordered and paid for the shipment, it belonged to Ghost until the shipment was delivered to the client. That was how Michael treated his business. By attacking the carriage and stealing the shipment, Duke Avon practically attacked Ghost. So the Duke had to pay for what he did. My lord! Azazel contacted Michael through the telepathic link between them. Azazel! Azazel heard Michael's voice in his head. My lord, one of our shipments were attacked and stolen. For a few moments, Azazel received no response from Michael. Who? Azazel felt a chill running down his spine when he heard Michael's murderous voice. Duke Avon, the Duke of Flamefair, said Azazel. Chapter 639. New Elder Vampire after leaving Fabia's laboratory, Saber headed straight to the main hall, where the other Elder Vampires were waiting for him. Among the 10 seats around the stone table, only 3 seats were taken. Trista, Lenora, and Ingram welcomed Saber with a nod. Saber slowly pulled his stone chair back. The chair made a creaking noise. Read chapter 474 to refresh your memories about the vampires. Have you found Haken's killer? Asked Lenora. Ingram and Trista turned their gazes to Saber. Not yet. Saber simply shrugged. He didn't share the letter he received from Harriet when he was in R. Elder Ingram, you wanted to talk about something. Saber ingrained the 2 lady vampires and turned his gaze to the oldest elder vampire among them, Ingram. How prepared are we to face the Dark Lord? Ingram asked. He was always the quiet one, but when he asked this question, there was gravity in his voice. Why are you asking this so suddenly, Elder Ingram? Trista asked. Among all the vampires, they only called Ingram Elder due to his age and power. To this date, the vampires didn't know Ingram's cultivation stage. He kept his powers well hidden. Because of that, Ingram was the most feared and respected. Haven't you heard what happened to the Holy Church in the royal land? Lenora quickly asked Trista. Of course, I heard about that. My question is, what does that have to do with us? If you ask me, The destruction of the Holy Church works in our favor, said Lenora. It has everything to do with us. The Dark Lord is hunting down everyone he deems evil. I think we qualify to be called evil all the way, chuckled Trista. Elder Ingram. Unlike Lenora and Trista, Saber didn't take the threat of the Dark Lord lightly. According to what I heard, we aren't strong enough to fight the Dark Lord. If he decides to hunt us down, we will have a problem, said Saber. Silence fell over them for a few moments. We may have to call upon all the elders, at least those who are alive, Ingram calmly said. His words shocked everyone. Why? Because it had been almost 100 years since all the 10 elders gathered in one place. This chapter upload first at Novelbin. Net, if you want to read more chapters, please visit Novelnext.com to experience faster update speed. Elder Ingram, are you thinking of waking up a blood prince? The words sent shivers down Trista and Lenora's spines. The Blood Prince was one of the ancient vampires. They were the first creations of the Vampire Lord. However, due to their violent nature and long lifespan, the Blood Princes entered a state of slumber thousands of years ago. No one knew how many Blood Princes were in this world. Their records were lost in time. For now, the elders had access to one Blood Prince. Only through a special ritual could they wake up a Blood Prince. But waking up a Blood Prince had several drawbacks. One of them was that the elders would have to listen to the Blood Prince until the Blood Prince entered the slumber state. Simply put, they would take over the Deathless clan. Ingram nodded. But Trista's words were cut short when Ingram raised his hand. I saw the Dark Lord slaughter the Holy Guards. It wasn't a battle as the mortals claim. It was a one-sided massacre. He killed several soul refiners within a snap of time. In my eyes, he wasn't even using a fraction of his true power. The words startled Trista and Lenora. In the night, they all could reach the fusion stage level 8. That was their base cultivation power. Coupled with immunity to spell attacks, regeneration, and inhuman speed, the vampires turned into a terrifying force of nature. A typical fusion stage cultivator would not be able to defeat the elder vampires. Unless one had a primordial flame, defeating an elder vampire was nearly impossible. We are not prepared to face him. That's the truth. Ingram's gaze swept across the other three. Waking up a Blood Prince may be our only way to end the threat before it ends us all, said Ingram. His voice sounded more grave than usual. Elder Ingram, we have to think this through before we act. Waking up a Blood Prince isn't that simple. He or she would take over the clan. They would order us around. And think about our current state. The entire world knows we exist. What if the Blood Prince decides we are not capable of leading the clan and choose new elders? Lenora panicked. Her words had some merit. Saber knew this. To be honest, even he wasn't entirely on board with waking up a Blood Prince. As far as he was concerned, waking up a Blood Prince had more drawbacks than benefits. However, if Elder Ingram decides to wake up a Blood Prince, they would have no choice but to follow him. Forget about the Blood Prince. If they disagreed with him, Saber knew Ingram would kill them all and replace them with new elders. Unlike Trista and Lenora, Saber witnessed Ingram slaughter a group of vampires mercilessly in the Azer continent almost 100 years ago. They were all elder vampires created by Ingram himself. Although they possessed the title of elders, they were all inferior to the elders at the Round Table. Those elder vampires were tasked to eliminate all the kings and queens in Azer at that time. To their bad luck, they failed, almost exposing the vampires in the process. As a result, Ingram slaughtered every single elder vampire without a shred of mercy. Despite his calm composure, Saber knew how cruel Ingram really was. The entire Deathless clan thought Saber was the most terrifying, but Saber himself was terrified of Ingram. Even if Trista, Lenora, and he teamed up, they would stand no chance against Ingram. Hence, Saber didn't want to go against Ingram's wishes. I lived longer than the three of you combined. I know a threat to us when I see one. The Dark Lord is a threat. Don't make me repeat my words. Ingram creased his brows. The room became colder to the point that they could all see their breath escaping their noses. His eyes glimmered with intense killing lust. "We will do as you wish, Elder Ingram," Saber quickly exclaimed before the situation escalated further. "But we have one tiny problem. We only have 9 elders," said Trista. "No, we have 10, said Saber. But, except for Ingram, the other vampires didn't have a clue about the 10th vampire. Saber just clapped as the open space in the table's center slowly opened as a figure emerged from the ground. Upon seeing the elders, the figure dropped to one knee and removed his cloak. "I turned him, and if we all agree, he can be an elder at the table," said Saber. Trista and Lenora stared at the red-haired human for a few seconds. This chapter upload first at Novelbin. Net, why do I have the feeling I saw him somewhere before? Trista rubbed her chin. Wait a minute. Lenora recognized the scar on his face. Then she had a light of realization. "You're the Duke of Flamefair," exclaimed Lenora. She was surprised, and it was visible in her tone. As Trista heard Lenora, her eyes went wide. She wondered when Saber managed to pull a Duke to the dark side. "Duke Avon Jilks, raise your head," Saber ordered as Duke Avon lifted his head to look at the elder vampires before him. Although Avon looked calm, his heart was pounding. A few months ago, Avon didn't even know the vampires existed. But thanks to Fabia Viridius, whom Avon knew as the Black One, he was able to meet Saber. To his astonishment, Saber offered him the chance to become one of them. A typical man would have freaked out or outright rejected the offer, but Avon was no such man. He lusted for power more than anything. That was the reason why Avon allowed Fabia to open secret dungeons to experiment on the cultivators in the first place. With Saber behind him, Avon went to open war against not one but 2 duchies at the same time. Not only that, but he also ordered his men to steal Ghost's potion and pill shipment. Even the kings and queens of Elon dared not to go against Ghost, but to Avon, Ghost was just a mortal he could kill in a snap. After all, Saber granted him all the powers of a greater vampire. From what he had seen, no mortal, whether they were prodigies or freaks of nature, stood no chance against a vampire. "Why did you choose him?" asked Lenora. "Isn't it obvious? He is a duke." Trista rolled her eyes. "But not only that, he was helping my servant for quite some time. This is just me rewarding his diligent support for us," said Saber. "If we made him the elder, he would win the war against the Pentown and Icefair. We can control the entire kingdom of Kethin in a few months," explained Saber. Trist and Lenora turned their gazes toward Ingram. After experiencing the cold killing intent from Ingram, they did not want to cross him again. Besides, Saber was right. Controlling the Duke meant controlling his duchy. Once they could control the 3 duchies, the entire kingdom would soon be their hunting ground. They could hunt, recruit more subordinates, spread their influence, and much more. Simply put, the possibilities were endless. After contemplating for a few moments, Trista and Lenora nodded, agreeing to turn Avon into an elder. I, Lenora Beatrix, agree to turn Avon Jilks into an elder of the Deathless clan. I, Trista Nevada, agree to turn Avon Jilks into an elder of the Deathless clan. Saber nodded. I, Saber Byron, agree to turn Avon Jilks into an elder of the Deathless clan. Finally, Ingram rose from his stone chair. I, Ingram Dragon, agree to turn Avon Jilks into an elder of the Deathless clan. In a blink of an eye, Ingram disappeared and reappeared behind Avon. Before Avon could realize what was happening, Ingram grabbed Avon's head, tilted it to his side, and sunk his fangs into Avon's neck. Blood spurted out as Avon's body twitched. One by one, the others sunk their fangs into Avon's neck. When they were done, Avon collapsed onto the ground. His body went through several changes. Finally, after approximately 2 hours, Avon woke up at his mansion as an elder vampire. Chapter 640. The war between the duchies after Noah left for the pocket dimension with Yasmin. The Winston family soldiers, consisting of 500 men, began their march towards the assigned battlefield. Since a large-scale battle between cultivators would destroy the surroundings to nothing, the Guardian Guild assigned a specific battlefield and surrounded the field with various arrays to safeguard the villages nearby. Because none of the parties at war agreed to a peace talk, the Guardian Guild had no choice but to oversee the war. Of course, the Guardian Guild could have stopped the war if they tried. However, their priority was to restore their damaged reputation. Ever since the Royal News wrote an article about how the Guardian Guild knew about the vampires and hid it from the public, the guild had lost its reputation. As a result, many noble families withdrew from funding or decreased the amount given to the guild. Thus, the Guardian Guild prioritized fixing its reputation to sway the guild from the path to bankruptcy. Leaving the Winston compound, Xavier and Ethan led the men under their command to the Akar grass field. It was located between the border of Flamefair and Pentown. They wanted to save every bit of arch energy in their body. Hence, they chose to march instead of fly to the grass field. Despite the long march, Ethan and Xavier did not camp out in the forest. They both knew about Avon and his underhanded tactics. It wouldn't be a surprise if they were ambushed in the forest. Thus, Ethan and Xavier passed the forest as fast as possible without any rest. When they were getting closer to the grass field, they ordered the men to take half a sip of healing potions. The men were thankful to the commanders once they consumed some healing potion. They immediately felt refreshed and rejuvenated. Soon, the refreshing feeling turned to courage and courage turned bloodlust. Once they passed the forest, they arrived at a clearing, the Akar grass field. When they arrived, two men, one riding a white horse and another riding a red horse, galloped toward Ethan and Xavier. The man atop the shiny white horse was Duke Marvin. He was a blonde-haired man with a thick bushy beard. His golden spear dangled on his back as he welcomed Xavier and Ethan with a tired smile. The man riding next to Duke Marvin was Duke Alvarin, the Duke of Icefair. Among the four dukes, Alvarin was the only non-human. He was born to an elven woman and a human father. After his mother died, Alvarin received the duke title from his father, who departed to the cold mountain to seclude himself. As a half-elf, Alvarin had slightly pointed ears and smooth silky skin with a perfect jaw structure. He was neither too muscular nor too thin. Initially, when the previous Duke of Icefair named a half-elf as his heir, many nobles caused a ruckus. Regardless of Alvarin's claim to the title, the nobles did not want to be ruled by a half-elf. Instead, they wanted the Duke to choose someone else, a human. Yet, the Duke chose Alvarin against the nobles. Everyone, including the King of Kethin, Porter Forbes, thought the duchy was doomed to fall into a civil war. But to everyone's surprise, Alvarin used his mother's side of the family to bring millions of gold coins to the Ice Fair. Within a year, he built more guilds, shops, and businesses than all of his predecessors combined. Under Alvarin, Ice Fair became a superpower among the four duchies. While Flamefair and Pentown were in the Cold War, Ice Fair made money off of it. Soon, those who opposed Alvarin changed their mindsets. More gold coins into the pocket triumphed over their hate for the half-elf. One by one, every noble family in the Ice Fair flourished under Alvarin's rule. After winning the noble support, Alvarin immediately turned his focus to the citizens of his duchy. Under Alvarin's father's rule, Ice Fair suffered famine due to a lack of fertile lands in Ice Fair. As the duchy's name, Ice Fair had more snowy plains than fertile lands. That changed soon when Alvarin requested the Empress of Aar's help. Once again, Alvarin used his mother's influence and his diplomatic talents to sway the Empress into helping Ice Fair. With the help of the Empress, a special unit of elves arrived from Aar, cultivating the snow plains into fertile lands. Additionally, the Empress and Alvarin signed a treaty that brought Ice Fair a large amount of grains every year. All it took was Alvarin's word to marry one of the Empress' relatives when the right time came. Duke Alvarin. Xavier was surprised to see Duke Alvarin on the battlefield. Alvarin was a diplomat, not a warrior, at least none had seen him battle before. So when Xavier saw Duke Alvarin himself on the battlefield, he was surprised. This chapter upload first at Novelbin. Net. If you want to read more chapters, please visit Novelnext. Com to experience faster update speed, Commander Xavier, Lord Ethan. Duke Alvarin gently smiled at the both. Before you say anything, I am just here to oversee the battle, not to participate in it, Alvarin said. His words were calm, composed, and contained a hint of authority. I have brought you 500 archers from my personal army as I promised, Commander Xavier. Xavier turned his head to the side and saw 500 archers clad in silver leather armor. They stood behind Duke Marvin's iron-armed soldiers on the front lines. Duke Marvin's men were divided into 2 platoons. One platoon consists of warriors wearing crimson-red armor. They were armed to the teeth and each held a long golden spear. The second platoon stood between the archers and the iron-armored soldiers. Instead of armor, they were in their robes. These platoons contained cultivators who specialized in long-ranged and supporting spells such as defense barriers and healing spells. In total, the Ice Fair and Pentown soldiers formed an army of 1,600,000. Boom! As they were speaking, the sound of a horn reverberated through the grass field. They all turned their gazes in the horn's direction. On the horizon, a large army slowly marched toward them. The army of Duke Avon finally arrived at the Akar grass field. The front-line soldiers, almost 600 knights clad in shining plate armor, halted a good distance away from Ice Fair and Pentown's army. They were near enough to see their enemies but far enough to evade arrows. The archers of Duke Alvarin quickly knocked and aimed their arrows at the newly arrived army. Commander Xavier. Alicia descended from the sky after scouting the area ahead. She was in her battle suit, armed to the teeth. Except for her head, metal armor covered every part of her body. Her sword dangled on her waist while she held a golden spear, just like her comrades in her hand. Although Xavier was Alicia's grandfather on the battlefield, he was her commander. Hence, Alicia bowed her head and addressed him as commander. This chapter upload first at Novelbin. Net, our enemies have 1,600 soldiers, 600 knights, 500 archers, and 500 mages, reported Alicia. Any idea how strong they are? How many core formation stage warriors? Are there any soul refiners? Asked Xavier. No, Commander. Duke Avon has some mages who cast a shield around them. It prevents any means to see their cultivation levels, said Alicia. Ever since the Hydra woke up from its slumber, it had been preventing the cultivators from seeing others' cultivation stage. It was a double-edged sword, especially for the soldiers on the battlefield. They wouldn't be able to gauge how strong or weak their enemies were. If they were lucky, they could end up fighting a weaker opponent. If there were not, then most probably they would die. This all ends here today, Ethan exclaimed. He was sick of losing his soldiers to Avon's underhanded tactics. His eyes gleamed with battle lust. When Harriet was at his cultivation stage, Ethan fought head-to-head with her. Before becoming the Lord of Winston family, Ethan was the only man who came close to defeating Harriet Hunt in close combat. Even to this day, many adventurers in R sing about the Black Hawk, Ethan's adventurer guild name. Return to your regiment, Xavier ordered Alicia with a pat on her shoulder. An affectionate smile rose on his face. With a nod, Alicia joined the front line. Seeing his granddaughter joining the knights, Xavier sighed inside. He wished Peter was with Alicia on the battlefield. After all, no one would have one's back like family. It was really unfortunate that Peter walked a dark path and ended up being house arrested. But again, Xavier always sensed something amiss in Peter ever since Peter was a little boy. He valued power over everything, even family had become second to Peter. The army of Duke Avon Station in the distance, watching their enemies. For a few minutes, only silence haunted the battlefield. Eventually, Xavier and Ethan rode their horses, leading their men to the front. Meanwhile, Duke Alvarin and Duke Marvin went to the back, far enough to avoid the enemy archers. Xavier turned behind to look at his men. Their eyes told him they fear no one and they would charge forward with a single command. His men were strong, but there was no need to purposefully put themselves at a disadvantage by charging head-on toward their enemy. Xavier wanted to study their enemies a bit more before giving any command. Anyone who knew Avon could tell he wouldn't come to the battlefield without having several trump cards. It took Xavier decades to train his men. He did not want them to die a pointless death. Since Xavier had seniority, Ethan stayed behind, waiting for Xavier's command. After some thinking, Xavier decided not to charge in recklessly. However, that didn't mean he would stand here like a sitting duck. Bring out the beast, Xavier issued an order as several knights dismounted their horses and started assembling a portable weapon made of iron. It resembled a hybrid of a ballista and a cannon. The long hollow tube was as long as 2 carriages combined. After several minutes, the knights finished assembling the weapon and pointed it at the army of Duke Avon. Xavier moved a bit closer to Duke Avon's army. He then used a sliver of arch energy to amplify his voice. "Duke Avon, come out!" Xavier's roar was loud enough, even without amplifying his voice. But with his arch energy amplifying his voice, his words reverberated the entire grass field. The novel will be updated first on this website. Come back and continue reading tomorrow, everyone. Chapter 641 Duke Avon's appearance. When the sun disappeared on the horizon, stars peeked their heads out in the dark sky. They glimmered in the black canve-like sky. There was a coldness mixed with beauty in the night sky. Under the black sky, the 2 armies waited for each other to charge forward. Commander Xavier's words caused a commotion in both armies. They all waited for Duke Avon to appear, but he was nowhere to be seen. Even Duke Avon's commanders didn't see Duke Avon for a few days. They only received a parchment containing Duke Avon's order and crest. Looking at warriors such as Ethan and Xavier leading their men, Duke Avon's commanders felt a bit down. Their morale was down, especially after seeing the iron weapon the soldiers assembled. "If you don't come out, we will blow your army into bits and pieces," Xavier continued to roar. "Come out and face me like a man. A duel. We will finish this without bloodshed." On the front lines stood the 3 commanders of Duke Avon's army. They were all covered in iron plate armor from head to toe. Even their horses were armed to the teeth. They looked at the enemy soldiers, threatening to charge toward them any moment. "That damn old bastard." One of the commanders gnashed his teeth. "The thing they are pointing at us." The commander dragged his words. "The beast, yes." Another one who was familiar with the weapon nodded. "Commander Xavier's pet. The same thing the Belleforts used to siege many castles." This chapter upload first at Novelbin.net. If you want to read more chapters, please visit NovelNext.com to experience faster update speed. The soldiers amplified their gazes using arch energy and stared at the weapon, particularly at its long hollow tube. It resembled a cannon, but the base was that of a ballista. They could hardly see the weapon, but some of them could see the glowing runes engraved on its black metal surface. Silence fell over the battlefield after Xavier stopped roaring. As a veteran who went through countless wars, Xavier possessed the skill to study his enemies. At the moment, Duke Avon's army looked to be in low morale. The Duke, their leader, wasn't there with them, while all the leaders, including Duke Alvarin, blessed their enemies with their presence. Many soldiers in Duke Avon's army felt hesitant to fight the demon. Xavier's presence made them tremble. Almost everyone in the army heard about Xavier's tales and how dangerous the man was on the battlefield. "Duke Marvin," Duke Alvarin leaned slightly to his side. "Isn't Alicia a guardian? How could she participate in the war?" The Guardian Guild had a rule stating its members cannot participate in any wars. Instead, the guild preferred to stay neutral and only advocated stopping wars. So when Duke Alvarin saw Alicia in her battle armor, he was surprised. "She quit the guild." "I thought you'd know that by now, Duke Alvarin," answered Duke Marvin. After the guild began an investigation on Peter, Tenulia asked Alicia to take a long holiday. By that time, the Cold War between Icefair and Flamefair escalated to the point Duke Avon waged a full-on war against Icefair. Being in the guild without any power to help her brother caused great pain to Alicia. She was both mentally and physically exhausted. After a long discussion with Noah, Ethan, and her family members, Alicia decided to quit the Guardian Guild. She desperately wanted to help her family out of the trouble caused by Peter. That was the reason Alicia joined the army raised by the Belfort family under her grandfather. Now that she had quit the guild, she was free to side with any kingdoms or families in a war. Furthermore, she was free to find whatever was necessary to free her brother. Makes sense. Duke Alvarin recalled everything that had transpired in the tournament related to Peter. As a matter of fact, He received several complaints from the nobles in secret about a vigilante beating the hell out of their kin in the night. He even designated a special unit of soldiers to hunt down this vigilante. But never in a million years, he thought Peter would be this vigilante. The Belafort family was one of the very few families that didn't oppose his ascension to the Duke title. They respected his father's wishes and supported him wholeheartedly. To be honest, Duke Alvarin was glad that Ghost exposed Peter instead of his own unit. It could have caused a rift between him and the Belafort family if his soldiers had caught Peter. Although it was hardly discernible to a normal person's eyes, Ethan could see the soldiers of Duke Avon trembling. Realizing this was the perfect time to strike at the enemy, Commander Xavier raised his hand, threatening to issue an order any time. "Soldiers, we don't need big morale-boosting speeches. We boost our morale by hunting down our enemies. We boost our morale by feasting on their blood. You have followed me into countless battles and emerged victorious. Today won't be any different. Let us strike our foes and decimate the flame fair once and for all." Xavier's words sent shivers running down the opposing soldiers' spines. His words were filled with murderous intent. This chapter upload first at Novelbin. Net some cowardly soldiers even took a step back, and the soldiers standing at the last line pondered if they should sneak away. Their morale was at its lowest when a bolt of lightning cracked the sky, almost splitting the sky into halves. The bolt of lightning was too bright to the point many closed their eyes for a moment. When Xavier and his men were about to march forward, they saw Duke Avon standing in front of the soldiers. The orbs of light hovered above the flame-fair army, illuminating his face. As soon as the flame-fair soldiers saw the Duke, they felt relieved. Soon the relief turned into courage, and courage boosted their morale. A small smirk rose on Xavier's face. Once they marched for a few seconds, Duke Avoyne would be in the beast's firing range. At that time, they could kill Duke Avon with a single shot and end this war before it even begins. "Fire!" Xavier shouted. On cue, the beast roared. Crimson iron lava-like cannonball shot toward the Duke and his army. The temperature around them rose several degrees as the projectile whizzed by. The cannonball soared through the air. Luckily, the cannonball hit the Duke with deadly accuracy. On contact with the Duke, a powerful shock wave shot around Duke Avon's army with a loud explosion. The ground rumbled as the cannonball exploded into numerous small orbs of lava. Although the frontline soldiers erupted their shields in front of them, the shock wave knocked them down from their horses. Following the explosion, a dust cloud formed around the Duke, preventing Xavier and his soldiers from seeing what was the result of the hit. When the dust storm died down, they all saw Duke Avon standing there without a single scratch on his body. The soldiers of Duke Avon's opposing army, including Xavier and Ethan, bewilderedly stared at Duke Avon. Hints of confusion were evident on their faces. Even the commanders of Duke Avon's army were stunned at the outcome. Those who were near the Duke looked at him with quizzical eyes. There was a huge explosion, the ground rumbled and the temperature rose, but that was all. Even the numerous smaller fireballs spat out by the hit dispersed after several seconds, as though an invisible hand swept them away into non-existence. "So that was the so-called beast, huh?" "Not impressed," Duke Avon smirked. His words were loud enough for everyone on the battlefield to hear. Yai. It took Duke Avon's soldiers several seconds to realize their leader had dispersed the enemy's most powerful weapon without breaking a sweat. When their brains finished processing what had just transpired, they were shocked, but soon the shock turned into tenacity. Their morale shot through the roof as they roared. The soldiers raised their weapons toward the sky. Their battle cry rumbled as loud as a thunderclap. Xavier never thought Duke Avon was strong enough to withstand the beast's direct hit. Any normal man would have exploded into bits and pieces. Unless Duke Avon had reached the peak soul refining stage or cast a legendary defense spell, it was impossible for him to survive such a direct hit. After dispersing the cannonball, Duke Avon just smirked. He adjusted his red robes before turning his back on the charging enemies. "Don't take prisoners," Duke Avon simply said before walking through the army to the back. To everyone's astonishment, Duke Avon did not charge onto the enemies. After startling everyone by stopping the cannonball, He just decided to stay at the back instead of fighting on the front lines. However, the show Avon put on boosted morale and gave the soldiers the courage to face their enemies. Despite what Avon did, Xavier did not slow down. He was a veteran who went through countless battles. A simple variant wasn't enough to discourage the demon. Instead, Xavier let out a roar and marched faster than before. Behind Xavier, Alicia was running as fast as Xavier's horse. She almost surpassed him. At that moment, Ethan, Xavier, and Alicia led the entire army by the front. Boom! 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 Although the beast failed to kill Duke Avon, the knights continued to fire cannonballs from the beast. Every time the beast roared, the ground trembled as the temperature rose by several degrees around them. Seeing the cannonballs soaring towards them, the mages from Avon's army flew forward, preparing to cast defense shields around the army on the ground. They doubted the army could withstand the cannonballs like Duke Avon. While the two armies were about to clash, a couple of level 10 soul refiners from the Guardian Guild appeared in the sky to cast a barrier around the Archer grass field. Instead of trying to stop the war, they ensured the war happens in a controlled environment. Chapter 642 The Bloody War Under the Night Sky. The two armies charged at each other. Their footsteps shook the ground like an earthquake. Ethan, Xavier, and Alicia led the Icefair and Pentown armies, while 3 armored knights led the Flamefair army instead of Duke Avon. Unmasked hostility and bloodlust filled the air. The army of Duke Avon glared at Xavier, Ethan, and Alicia. Each of them terrified the soldiers, but with Duke Avon behind them, they showed nothing but battle lust in their eyes. Finally, they found an outlet for their boiling battle lust. When the two armies were just a short distance from each other, Xavier roared, "Show no mercy!" The entire army behind him roared in unison. With Ethan and Xavier leading the army, the soldiers fearlessly charged toward the Flamefair army. Arch energy gushed out of the soldiers' bodies, amplifying their strengths beyond typical human limits. Each of them gripped their golden spears tightly to clash against the Flamefair army without regard for their lives. The two armies collided. The sound of iron striking iron reverberated as armored knights' swords and spears struck against each other. Sparks flew, and blood filled the air as the two opposing foes broke into a melee. The Flamefair army broke out, fighting like savages. Both armies were fearless as they swung their weapons left and right. Alicia also roared and hacked every enemy in her path without a shred of mercy. The Flamefair soldiers were Alicia's outlet for her buried anger. She used her spear to stab a couple of soldiers simultaneously and her other hand to send cold spikes left and right. Due to the sound of iron clashing, no one could hear the spells she was casting. While Alicia was slaughtering the Flamefair army, Ethan and Xavier wreaked havoc on the other side. To Xavier's surprise, Ethan fought like a demon incarnate. Riding the black horse, Ethan looked more demon than Xavier. Unlike Alicia, Ethan did not cast any spells. He just used his sheer strength to slash and dash the enemies with his long sword. However, the Flamefair soldiers weren't powerless either. In fact, they surprised Xavier himself. While Alicia and Ethan were killing the soldiers effortlessly, Xavier's personal army struggled against the Flamefair soldiers, especially the 3 armored commanders. Coupled with the secret potion Duke Avon mixed in their meals, the decades of training and experience made the Flamefair army stand their ground against Xavier's army. Demonic ice rain. Alicia roared in a deep hate-filled voice. Many Flamefair soldiers intuitively brought their weapons above shield themselves. Soon, a large glowing chakra lit the battleground beneath. Those who were in the spotlight felt the temperature drop by several degrees. Their skin went numb to the coldness. A split second later, the chakra shot countless ice spikes from above. Hundreds of ice spikes rained down upon them with enough force to impale everyone below. Some of them got lucky when the mages of the Flamefair army cast a barrier around the soldiers. Upon colliding with the golden dome around the army, the ice spikes exploded into bits and pieces of ice. When the chakra faded away, the archers of Duke Alvarin released their arrows. They lit the arrows with flame before firing. In mid-air, they resembled a swarm of fireflies. Both armies quickly cast whatever defense spell they could, and those who held shields raised them above their heads. Spells and arrows weren't sentient to know who was friendly and who was the enemy. In a few minutes, hundreds of soldiers were either killed or lost their limbs in the clash. All of it was because of one man's ego, Duke Avon. This chapter upload first at Novelbin.net. If you want to read more chapters, please visit Novelnext. To experience faster update speed. The Duke is mine, Alicia roared as her voice reverberated throughout the entire battlefield. Stop! Xavier tried to stop Alicia, but the loud explosion sounded from the beast made his shout inaudible. Moving forward, Alicia raised her hand, firing a stream of ice from her palm. The weaker soldiers who were in the ice stream's path immediately turned into statues. Her ice stream cut open a path in the army as she shot toward the Duke. Where are you going? A murderous shout was heard when Xavier tried to follow Alicia. His battle instincts kicked in as he blocked the long axe with his sword. His hand went numb. Soon, the three armored commanders surrounded Xavier. Looking at this from quite far from Xavier, Ethan plunged his spear into the ground with enough force to create a strong shock wave. For the first time, Ethan cast this shock wave since the start of his battle. Everyone in a 3-meter radius around Ethan was sent flying. He leaped into the air, preparing himself to shoot toward Xavier. Go to her. Xavier amplified his voice with arch energy. His words sounded in Ethan's head like a bell, clear and loud. On a battlefield, even a split-second hesitation would cost a life. Ethan knew this. For instance, if Ethan hesitated even for a second to follow Xavier's order, either he or Alicia would be killed. A veteran commander like Xavier would not die to 3 unnamed commanders. Hence, Ethan obeyed his order by flying in Alicia's direction as fast as he could. Seeing Ethan's trajectory toward their lord, the mages hovering in the air immediately cast several spells to stop Ethan from reaching the Duke. Ethan flew like an arrow shot from a bow. However, he quickly halted when he saw a beam of blue energy heading toward him. Intuitively, Ethan swayed his body to the side, avoiding the energy beam just by a few inches. Without giving Ethan any more time, another mage fired a long, thick arrow made of fire in Ethan's direction from above. Ethan swayed left and right, avoiding the spell. But his bad luck, he kept getting bombarded by the mages above him. While Ethan was facing the mages, Alicia finally reached the Duke, who stood way behind his army, close enough to see the battlefield but far enough from the archers and the beast. In stark contrast to his normal crimson-red attire, Duke Avon wore dark robes from head to toe. He even covered his head with a cloak. When Alicia went past the mages and the army, she saw Duke Avon standing alone without any personnel guards. His eyes glimmered like a cat in the darkness. Face me like a man. Alicia slowly stepped towards Duke. Her sword dangled around her waist until she unsheathed it. She held the golden spear in one hand and the sword in the other. Although she couldn't see Duke Avon's cultivation stage, she didn't fear him at all. She completely ignored that Duke Avon single-handedly stopped the beast's cannonball. Hearing her murderous tone, Duke Avon remained calm. He did not indulge her in a conversation. Instead, Duke Avon looked up at the moonless sky. He could feel the darkness powering him up. New sensations caused his mind to be bewildered. The power of being a vampire really mesmerized him. Before turning into an elder vampire, he had never thought he could hear someone's heartbeat so clearly from a distance. At this moment, Avon could see the world from a different perspective. For instance, Avon could see the energy radiation around Alicia. It was evident to him that Alicia was weaker than him. To Avon's surprise, only 2 people on the entire battlefield who could fight him head-to-head, Xavier and Ethan. As Alicia got closer to Avon, he could smell the sweet fragrance of blood. Immediately, his stomach growled. This strange feeling of hunger was new to Avon. Previously, if he had seen a beauty like Alicia, his mind would have created sexual thoughts. But now, he only wanted to feast on her blood. As a human, he knew drinking blood was animalistic or even forbidden. Still, his urge to suck her dry was too strong to resist. Under his dark cloak, The two fangs slowly grew to the point they stuck out of his mouth. Due to the darkness and his cloak, Alicia couldn't see the changes on his face. If she could, she would have seen the evil grin on Avon's face. This chapter upload first at Novelbin.net. I will end this pointless war once and for all. Alicia halted her steps from a couple of meters away from Avon. By killing you, the area turned colder as a white mist surrounded the two. By learning only icy spells, Alicia became closer to controlling the coldness in the area. However, she wasn't a god like Michael or Noah. Otherwise, she could have controlled the element itself. You are the bitch who follows that Winston boy everywhere, Duke Avon amused. He collects beauties like trophies, doesn't he? Avon questioned Alicia. Alicia didn't show any emotion on her face. However, she was boiling in rage inside. It took great control to stop herself from ripping him apart. How many other bitches are there in his harem? Asked Avon with a chuckle. The more he riled up Alicia, the stronger the scent of her blood became. He couldn't wait to get her blood to boil to the maximum so he couldn't have a nice delicious feast. Blood of a virgin. It was a rare delicacy for the vampires. He was no exception, even though he was only a vampire for a day. After tasting you, I am going to feast on every single one in your family, said Avon. After hearing Avon's last words, Alicia couldn't hold back her anger. She leaped at Avon with immense killing intent. Her entire body radiated a chill that would turn any typical man into an icy statue. With deadly speed, she pushed the spear in her hand toward Avon's heart. Avon did not even move an inch. Instead, he waited till the last moment to sway his body to the side and threw his fist at Alicia's gut. Duke Avon's speed and movement caught Alicia off guard. Before she could swing her sword to block his fist, she felt a sharp pain in her gut. The force of Avon's punch sent Alicia flying several meters back. Alicia coughed up a couple of times as Duke Avon grinned under the dark hood. I am going to enjoy this, amused Duke Avon. The novel will be updated first on this website. Come back and continue reading tomorrow, everyone. Chapter 643. Duke Avon wants Alicia weak. A strong, hateful voice was heard. Alicia intuitively blocked Duke Avon's hands from above. His speed was nothing like she had expected. One moment he was in front of her, and the other he was on top of her. Alicia's hands felt numb after the attack. Fortunately, she used her spear and sword to block the attack. Suppose she used her hand, it would have broken like a twig. Without giving time for Alicia to retaliate, Duke Avon sent a kick toward Alicia's gut. Alicia evaded the kick by quickly leaping back, but Duke Avon's hand swirled and followed her movements. His hands aimed at her neck. Alicia quickly erupted a shield made of 3 layers of ice in front of her. But to her astonishment, the ice shield formed cracks and shattered the moment Duke Avon's fist collided with it. Caught off guard, Alicia evaded the punch a split second later. The fist of Duke Avon hit Alicia on the shoulder, nearly dislocating her shoulder. Painful groan escaped her mouth. You are a lot weaker than I expected. Duke Avon cracked his knuckles. How disappointing. Alicia frowned. He didn't cast any spells, yet she moved at a speed beyond her expectation. Even her grandfather, the demon, didn't move with such speed. Something was amiss. On top of his freaky speed, Alicia smelled a strong, pungent smell coming off of Duke Avon. You did something to yourself, Alicia said. You noticed, huh? Duke Avon grinned under his dark hood. So I was right. You did do something to yourself, Alicia exclaimed. She then dropped the sword as the sword stabbed the ground, standing straight. Alicia massaged the shoulder hit by Avon's fist with her empty hand. Since Duke Avon wasn't in a rush to kill Alicia, he allowed her to take some time. He slowly realized that he liked the process of hunting more than the prey itself. After tasting a glimpse of Avon's power, Alicia did not underestimate him. She clenched the spear tight, casting a spell in the other hand. In a blink of an eye, a light blue chakra materialized in front of her. Looking at the rotating chakra and the several runes in it, Avon didn't even flinch. Instead, he waited for the chakra to do something. His wish came true soon as the arrows made of ice shot out from the chakra rapidly toward him. The chakra moved along with Alicia. A bright light flashed across the area every time an arrow shot out of the chakra. Cold air surrounded Alicia and Avon. But to Alicia's astonishment, none of the arrows made a dent in Avon. He just stood there, taking the arrows without moving an inch. Every arrow that hit Avon exploded into tiny dots of light before fading away. As a vampire, he was completely immune to any spell attacks. Poor Alicia had no idea Duke Avon before her was an elder vampire. The last time an elder vampire appeared, it took Michael and Noah to kill him. Compared to Duke Avon, the elder vampire Michael and Noah fought was far weaker. That elder vampire was created by Hakan and Trista, two elder vampires. On the contrary, Avon was turned by 4 elder vampires. Alicia didn't know she started a fight that she had no chance of winning. This chapter upload first at Novelbin.net. If you want to read more chapters, please visit Novelnext.com to experience faster update speed. I wonder how it feels to have my own minions. Avon slightly tilted his head, looking at Alicia from head to toe. As an elder vampire, he was free to do whatever he wanted as long as it benefited the vampires. After exchanging some blows with Alicia, Avon wondered whether to kill her or turn her into a vampire. According to Saber, the stronger ones will, the harder it would be to turn and control them. However, once their will was broken, they could be turned into a powerful greater vampire and eventually an elder vampire. His train of thought was cut short when Alicia leaped at him with her spear pointing directly at his head. She pushed herself to the maximum. As a result, she moved at the speed of an arrow. But to Avon, she moved at a snail's pace. He waited patiently until the spear was just a few inches away from his head. When the spear was about to penetrate his head, Avon grabbed the spear, pulled it toward him, and slapped Alicia right on the face. His slap was strong enough to send Alicia flying for nearly 10 meters. Avon was surprised to see his own strength. He only used a sliver of his strength, yet it was enough to send Alicia flying. This is power. Avon looked down at his fists. His grin grew ear to ear. At this moment, Avon felt he could take on the entire world. He feared nothing. With the blood of a vampire, he was quite unstoppable. Soon, Saber would find a solution for them to walk at night, and at that time, the night rulers would rule the day too. However, to achieve Saber's goal, Avon must first bring the kingdom of Kethern to Saber's feet. Only then could Saber use Kethern as his hunting ground and conduct several experiments to find a solution for the sun. The elder vampire fought Michael, and Noah used the dark web created by one of Saber's minions like Fabia. Although it prevented the sun rays from penetrating through, the dark web couldn't exist for more than a day. After what had transpired in the alchemist competition, Saber ordered his minions to perfect the dark web while sourcing another group to come up with a new solution. The elder vampires before the current ones were quite satisfied with living in the shadows. But it changed now. Saber and his group of elder vampires, except Ingram, wanted to rule both the day and night. Now that the Guardian Guild exposed them, they wanted to control the world more than ever before. Finally, Alicia hit the ground with a small thud. She slid through the grass vine for several meters, leaving a bloody trail before coming to a halt. Her face was slightly swollen as one could see the handprint on her cheek. She coughed out blood. When she picked herself up, her silver armor was completely drenched in mud. Gritting her teeth, Alicia suppressed the pain. With a flick of her wrist, she took out a glimmering blue potion. Avon glared at the potion in her hand. The potion in Alicia's hand paled in comparison to the potions he recently acquired. To Alicia's surprise, Avon allowed her to drink the whole potion without doing anything. He patiently waited for Alicia to completely heal up. Why? Alicia questioned herself, but pushing her doubts to the corner of her mind, she dashed at Avon once again. This time, her speed was several times faster than before. On her way to Avon, she threw the spear aside and picked up the sword sticking into the ground. In a few blinks of an eye, she appeared in front of Avon. Surprised by her speed, Yvonne failed to react in time. Using this momentary slip-up of Yvonne, Alicia swung her sword, deeply cutting Yvonne's shoulder. Blood spurted out. She did not stop with one cut. Instead, Alicia swung her sword left and right with monstrous speed. One by one, the cuts on Yvonne's body increased. Yvonne purposely let Alicia cut him so he could see his regeneration ability with his own eyes. Still, he avoided the sword slashes aimed at his neck. Although the vampires possessed a regeneration ability, they couldn't regenerate a severed head. A common or an uncommon sword had no chance of penetrating a vampire's thick skin, especially an elder's vampire's skin. But the sword in Alicia's hand was a family treasure gifted to her by Xavier himself. The dwarves forged the sword using some rare metals and engraved runes to complement cold elemental spells. Seeing Yvonne avoiding the slashes aimed at his neck, Alicia began to specifically aim for his head. She felt like she found a weakness and tried to exploit this weakness. While slashing her sword left and right, Alicia cast Demonic Ice Rain spell again, targeting Duke Yvonne. But to her astonishment, when the chakra materialized above them and illuminated the area, she noticed the cuts on Yvonne's body closing up without Yvonne taking any healing potions. Furthermore, she noticed Yvonne's eyes glimmering under the dark hood and a glimpse of his fangs. Her body went rigid as her brain started to process everything that had transpired. She immediately tried to leap back, but just as she was about to, Yvonne grabbed her by her neck. At this time, the ice spikes started to rain down upon Yvonne. Before the spikes could reach him, Yvonne looked up. A black mist shot out of him, creating a crescent shield above them. This chapter upload first at Novelbin. Net the ice spikes collided with the shield only to explode into oblivion. They did not even form a crack on the shield. "You are lucky," Yvonne growled. Under his deadly grip, Alicia's face turned paler. She tried to cut him with the sword, but he just swatted the sword out of her hand. "You will be my first minion. Take great pride in that." Alicia felt a chill hearing his animalistic growl. She could see the fangs more clearly up closer. "You a vampire?" Alicia could hardly utter these words. "Soon, you will be one of us too." Yvonne pulled Alicia closer. He took a long whiff of the sweet fragrance coming from Alicia's blood. More than anything, he wanted to sink his fangs into her neck. Alicia struggled frantically, but he was too strong. "No!" Alicia felt Yvonne's skin against her skin. When he was about to turn her into a vampire, a golden light flashed across the sky. The next moment, something shot directly onto Yvonne, sending him flying. Alicia coughed. "Stay back." To her surprise, Ethan stood between her and Yvonne with golden metallic wings protruding out of his back. The golden light radiated by Ethan's wings weakened Yvonne. He hissed and leaped back to get away from the golden light. "Uncle, he is not a human anymore. He is a vampire," Alicia managed to warn Ethan. Her words startled Ethan, but he didn't flinch. "Get back to your grandfather. I will take care of this," said Ethan. "The hell you will." The hatred-filled voice of Yvonne reverberated in the area. Ethan and Alicia took a step back, seeing Yvonne's eyes glimmering under his dark hood like rubies. A dark cloud shrouded him as he moved closer to Ethan. "I need only one minion, so one of you will die here," Yvonne growled. "The novel will be updated first on this website. Come back and continue reading tomorrow, everyone." Chapter 644 Ethan vs. Yvonne. Ethan spread his golden metallic wings, shielding Alicia. Each feather in the wing resembled a well-made kunai. The wing spell was given to him by Harriet recently. She modified the spell when she was in Ar before meeting Ethan. Since the vampires were vulnerable to sun rays, she modified the wings to create golden rays similar to sun rays. He cast the spells to kill the mages who were bombarding him. That was his sole intention. But he was stunned when Duke Yvonne leaped back to the darkness, away from the golden rays. "When you see a vampire, cast the spell and run away." Diana's words sounded in his head. Ethan creased his brows. The vampires were called the Night Rulers for a reason. According to Diana, who almost hunted the vampire kind to extinction in R. The vampires were extremely strong during the night. They harnessed power from the dark sky. So Harriet hunted them during the daytime when they were at their weakest. Coupled with Harriet's light flames, she was an absolute bane to the vampire kind. Duke Avon, just stand down. We can find a way to cure you. Unlike Alicia, Ethan did not underestimate Avon. Instead of fighting Avon head-to-head, Ethan tried to back away from Avon. After all, the golden wings would fade away after 10 minutes. Cure? Why do I need a cure? I've never been better, Duke Avon growled. I can see the spell wearing off. I always respected you, Ethan, so I will give you a choice. Turn around and leave. I will let you live. But she is mine. Avon took a step forward. As he said, the golden light radiating from the wings slowly dimmed. In the 10 minutes duration, Ethan spent 5 minutes fighting the mages. So he only had 5 more minutes before the wings disappeared. At that time, he would be powerless in front of Avon. Hearing Avon's words, Ethan's eyes glimmered with killing intent. I will kill you, Alicia threatened Duke Avon. If it weren't for Ethan standing between them, Alicia would have leaped onto Avon for another round. Even a vampire couldn't make Alicia afraid. As the three of them were talking, the 2 armies were in a deadlock behind them. Although Xavier slew one commander, the other 2 commanded the surrounding soldiers to focus their attacks on Xavier. They did not want Xavier to reach Duke Avon. However, they tried to get to Avon when they saw Alicia and Ethan, only to get halted by Xavier. Seeing his wings losing their glow, Ethan started to think of a way to escape Duke Avon. He knew there was no chance of him defeating Duke Avon. It was impossible without a primordial flame. Surprisingly, the Flame Fair commanders and the soldiers held well against Xavier. So he had to face Duke Avon alone somehow. Give me your sword and leave the battlefield. Tell the guardians above that the Duke of Flame Fair has turned into a vampire, said Ethan with an authoritative tone. Honestly, he couldn't believe Noah when he said the Guardian Guild had gone completely incompetent and corrupted. However, he could understand why Noah said those things. The soul refiners floating above the battlefield completely failed to recognize Avon as a vampire. The dark robes, regeneration, and the way he avoided bright golden light should have at least made them wonder. Yet, Ethan saw no interference from the Guardians. This chapter upload first at Novelbin. Net if you want to read more chapters, please visit NovelNext.com to experience faster update speed, but in Guardian's defense, this was just another day at work for them. They had seen countless wars, and this wasn't any special to them. Hence, they were just meditating in the sky rather than focusing on the battlefield. Uncle, Alicia hesitated to leave Ethan with Avon. It's an order, Alicia. Ethan's voice turned grave. He literally had no time to argue with Alicia. The sooner she gets out of this place, the better. At least if she informed the Guardians, they would do something about Avon. Slowly stepping back, Ethan grabbed Alicia's sword forcefully. Finally, the golden wings lost enough light for Duke Avon to attack Ethan. Go! Ethan pushed away Alicia and blocked Avon's hand with Alicia's silver sword. Ethan's hand felt numb as he got pushed several steps back. Despite everything, Ethan was glad to fight Avon alone. If the Duke was with his commanders and soldiers, it would be exponentially hard to fight him. That was why Ethan decided to fight Avon until Alicia informed the Guardians about Avon. When Alicia finally decided to leave the battlefield, Avon dashed at Ethan. His kin underneath the dark hood burnt due to the golden light surrounding Ethan. Yet, it wasn't powerful enough to slow him down. To Avon's surprise, Ethan moved almost as fast as him. Caught off guard by Ethan's speed, Avon brought his arms in front of him intuitively. But Ethan slashed his sword at Avon's thigh and flapped the golden wings with enough power to push Avon several meters back. Using this opportunity, Alicia took off from the ground like a rocket. However, Avon surprised Ethan by shooting a dark arrow out of his arm. The arrow penetrated Alicia's leg and knocked her off from the sky. Blood spurted out from her leg as she growled. Alicia! Ethan screamed. He was about to dash at Alicia when Avon fired another dark arrow towards Ethan. The dark arrow perfectly blended with the darkness. An oblivious man wouldn't be able to see the arrow at all. However, Ethan was no oblivious man. He swung his sword at lightning speed, cutting the dark arrow in halves. After cutting the arrow, Ethan threw the silver sword at Avon. He wanted to keep Avon as far as possible from Alicia. The sword soared through the air until it penetrated Avon's chest. The sword's one end was sticking out of Avon's back. Dark blood oozed out of the wound, but Avon just smirked. "You are better than her," Avon said. His voice had the mix of both shock and respect. Not in a million years Avon thought Ethan to fight like a freak. If he wasn't turned into a vampire, there was no way he could have defeated Ethan in a battle. Furthermore, he hadn't cast any spell except the golden wings. Ethan fought with pure skills he sharpened through his years of adventuring. Ignoring the pain, Avon slowly pulled out the sword. Blood kept spraying out of the wound. While Avon stuck with the sword, Ethan flicked his wrist as a sparkling blue potion appeared in his hand. He quickly tossed that potion to Alicia. "Take it," Ethan ordered Alicia. For a moment, she looked at the potion blankly. But soon, a deep hatred glimmered in her eyes. The potion was made by Ghost, the man who destroyed her brother's life. She would rather die than take that potion. Her momentary hesitation was enough for Avon to completely pull out the sword. The wound closed up in a blink of an eye. "She is food. You're not." Avon tossed the sword aside. Instead of attacking Ethan, Avon waited for the golden wings to completely fade away. The golden wings flickered and soon, it disappeared from Ethan's back. Once again, darkness fell over them. With no golden wings and swords, Ethan stood no chance against an elder vampire. The golden wings may have disappeared, but the spark of fight blazed in Ethan's eyes brighter than before. No matter the odds, Ethan wouldn't let Avon kill his daughter-in-law. As long as he draws breath, Avon had to go through him to get to Alicia. Ethan cracked his fists, preparing himself for a fight to the death. This chapter upload first at Novelbin. "Net Alicia, can you do me a favor?" asked Ethan. "Get out of here and tell Noah to turn me back to human soon." A tired smile escaped his mouth. Tears rolled out of Alicia's eyes. She looked over her shoulder to see her grandfather fighting almost 20 men at the same time. He was getting bombarded with spells and attacks. Before Alicia could answer Ethan, Avon disappeared and appeared in front of Ethan. Without giving any time for Ethan to react, Avon kicked Ethan in the abdomen. Ethan managed to block the kick using his hand. A glimmer of surprise emerged in Avon's eyes. Ignoring the pain in his chest, Ethan grabbed Avon's head and headbutted the vampire repeatedly. Ethan felt like he was hitting his head against a metal door. When Avon retaliated by head-butting Ethan back, Ethan's eyes blurred. He coughed up blood, but his blurriness only lasted for a moment. Avon grinned broadly. "You have exceeded my expectations, Ethan. Now I see how all your children turned out to be freaks of nature." The Duke's eyes turned predatory. "But enough of this little dance." Avon channeled his arch energy to his fists. A dark mist surrounded Avon's body as his strength shot through the roof. He wasn't planning to hold back anymore. Alicia felt the surrounding grow darker as the seconds ticked by. Her mind analyzed the dark area and estimated its range. 20 meters. Now that Avon had unleashed his power, it would be impossible for Ethan to defeat Avon. Avon grabbed Ethan by his neck, licked the blood oozing down from Ethan's forehead. The sweet taste of blood was nothing like he had ever tasted. Even the most expensive wines could not hold a torch against the taste of fresh blood. A devilish grin appeared on Avon's face. "Let him go!" Alicia screamed from behind. She dashed toward Avon, crushing Ghost's healing potion under her feet. However, Avon had no intention to waste his time anymore. He raised his hand, blasting Alicia with a beam of dark energy. Ethan, on the other hand, tried to free himself from Avon's clutch, but the vampire was simply far stronger than him. "You have no idea the mistake you're about to make." To Avon's surprise, Ethan smirked. There was not a single shred of fear in his eyes. "I am done making mistakes," Avon snickered. His fangs once again grew longer. Avon's fangs were just an inch away from Ethan's neck when a bright streak of lightning flashed across the area. The very next moment, a strong gust of wind blasted Avon, sending him flying for several meters. Hitting the ground, Ethan groaned in pain. He wondered what the heck just happened. Soon, a calm voice reverberated in the area. "Sorry for the delay in the shipment, Lord Ethan." As soon as Ethan heard the voice, a smile emerged on his face. "Ghost." Chapter 645, Killing Another Elder Vampire. As he slowly descended from the sky, golden bolt of lightning crackled under Ghost's feet. The son Ethan lost had come to save his family once again. Despite what everyone told him about the Dark Lord, Ethan didn't believe his son was evil. He wanted to hug Ghost and tell him that he is his father. With a gentle smile on his face, Ethan looked up. Ghost's raven black hair had grown back to his neck length. The stubble beard gave him a charming look. As he descended, his black long coat fluttered in the wind. With his hands behind his back, Ghost calmly landed before him. "Lord Ethan." Michael extended his arm to Ethan. A glimmer of concern emerged in Ethan's eyes for a moment, but after remembering Ghost was the freaking Dark Lord, his mind calmed down. "Look out!" Suddenly, Ethan shouted, noticing Avon firing a dark arrow toward Ghost. Michael, however, remained calm. He caught the dark arrow before it could hit him without even turning back. The dark arrow trembled in his hand. Soon it shattered under his grasp. "Be careful. He is a vampire," said Ethan. Ethan saw no signs of fear on his son's face. Instead, he remained as calm as ever. Ghost reminded Ethan of Harriet. No matter the situation, the two of them remained calm. In Ethan's eyes, Ghost looked the same as Harriet. He even dressed in complete black and carried two swords on his back like his mother. In a blink of an eye, Avon dashed at Michael. To Ethan's shock, Ghost grabbed Avon by his neck. Just like when he caught the arrow, he didn't even turn around. "Arg!" Avon growled. He tried to escape from Ghost's clutch, but he couldn't. Lightning crackled around Michael's wrist, burning Avon's neck. Ethan's jaw dropped a few inches looking at the scene. The vampire who almost killed Alicia and him struggled like a weakling under his son's grasp. Finally, Michael turned his head to look Avon in the eyes. "You stole my shipment." Avon couldn't believe what he had just heard. With earth-shattering force, Michael took off from the ground. Under his grasp, Avon frantically twitched his body to escape. When Michael reached height enough to see the entire battle, he threw Avon to the middle of the battlefield where Xavier was fighting 20 soldiers at the same time. Except for the cloud of darkness, Michael used everything else to boost his power. The death range alone gave Michael enough power to manhandle Avon without breaking a sweat. The force of Michael's throw was enough to prevent Avon from regaining balance mid-sky. Boom! With a loud explosion, Duke Avon hit the ground, creating a powerful shock wave. A crater formed around Duke Avon due to the force of his collision. Duke Avon coughed up dark blood. The two armies on deadlock halted their fight for a moment. The soldiers couldn't help turning their gaze toward the sudden crater that appeared in the middle of the battlefield. This chapter upload first at Novelbin. Net. If you want to read more chapters, please visit Novelnext. Com to experience faster update speed before Duke Avon could get back to his feet. Michael shot toward him, leaving a golden lightning trail in the sky. He landed straight on top of Duke Avon and released a barrage of kicks, each kick carrying the same force as the previous one. "Protect his grace." The commanders, who realized it was their duke who was getting kicked to death, screamed as loud as they could. Their shout reverberated throughout the battlefield. Soon, the mages and knights tried to move toward the duke. "Kill them all!" At the same time, Xavier roared at his men to kill the Flamefair soldiers. Once again, a battle between the two armies broke out. Finally, Duke Avon managed to roll a few meters away from Ghost and managed to get back to his feet. The bruises and wounds on his face closed up at speed visible to the naked eye. His neatly pressed black robes were drenched in mud and torn in several places. An oblivious man would never recognize Avon as a duke. Instead, they would think of him as a beggar. Uncontrollable anger coursed through Avon's veins. He gnashed his teeth as the fangs grew as long as possible. Unlike the energy radiation Avon sensed from Ethan and Alicia, the energy radiation of Ghost was on another level. Avon could tell his cultivation level was far inferior to his opponent's. His only saving grace was his strong vampire body and superior regeneration. Otherwise, he would have been kicked to death a few moments ago. "Is that it?" snarled Avon. To Avon's astonishment, Ghost threw a green vial at his feet. The vials shattered, creating green mists around him. "You are not the first elder vampire I faced, Duke Avon." Michael's calm words startled Avon. His brain suddenly recalled everything he heard about what had transpired in the alchemy competition. Ghost and Noah fought and slain an elder vampire. At one point, even Saber mentioned something about Haken's creation rampaged at the alchemy tournament and ended up getting killed by 2 humans. For the first time, Avon's eyes glimmered with fear. But soon anger overshadowed his fear. Avon dashed at Ghost with enough speed to create a shockwave behind him. The bastard in front of him was a vampire slayer. He killed one of his kind. Although Avon did not know Haken or the elder vampire he had created, Avon wanted to avenge both of them. Upon reaching Ghost, Avon punched the bastard with every bit of his strength. The impact of the punch pushed Avon several steps back. His hand felt numb as though he had hit a metal wall. Only then did Avon see the black shield in Ghost's hand. As a vampire, he was blessed with speed beyond a cultivator's limit. Yet, Avon completely failed to see when Ghost took out the black shield. Seeing their lord at a disadvantage, the nearby Flamefair soldiers ignored their opponents and charged toward Michael. Ring of Fire! Michael cast the spell in his mind as the bright crimson-red flame shot out from Michael in a perfect circle. Waves of fire pulsated in regular intervals. Those who were caught in the radius of the flame circle screamed. Their agonizing screams and the strong scent of burning flesh filled the air. Soon after a few seconds, their screams stopped. Silence fell over them. Fortunately, Avon leaped into the air, escaping from the burning fire. Before his eyes, his men burnt to a crisp. Michael looked up at Avon. Countless tiny bolts of lightning crackled around his wrist, threatening to be unleashed at Avon. Suddenly, Avon coughed again and again in the air. Every part of his body started to ache as though he was being stabbed by hundreds of rusty needles. Extreme pain made him fall to the ground. Luckily for him, the pulsating flame waves disappeared, leaving smoking ashes on the ground. Even after losing their fellow soldiers to the flames, the others rushed toward Michael. With an annoyed look, Michael channeled the celestial energy and poured it to strengthen the lightning bolts around his wrists. When the soldiers got close enough, Michael raised his hands, firing thick bolts of a golden lightning bolt from each hand. The 2 lightning bolts struck the soldiers and penetrated several soldiers. Michael did not stop. He kept firing lightning bolts one after another. Whenever a bolt of lightning fired out of his hand, several soldiers dropped to the ground with large holes in their chests. This chapter upload first at novelbin.net. Avon roared in uncontrollable anger and leaped at Michael once again despite the pain. His body screamed at him to stop, yet Avon pushed himself to the limit. The anti-vampire potion Michael brewed after getting Victor's blood sample, and the elder vampire's flesh sample was working better than Michael expected. This time, Michael did not stay still. Instead, he cast the Ignitia and moved toward Victor faster than his opponent. When the 2 of them collided, it created a powerful shock wave. Under the soldiers' shocked gazes, Michael punched Avon left and right. Only the soldiers above core formation could see Michael's punches because he was simply too fast for the eyes of the others. In a few seconds, Michael landed almost 50 punches. Avon's vision soon started to blur. Michael suddenly picked Avon up off his feet by his waist and slammed him on the ground. Avon coughed up more blood. To everyone's surprise, Ghost did not stop with the slam. He proceeded to grab Avon's leg, lifted him up, and slammed him again and again and again like Avon was a weightless doll. The soldiers were terrified. The man who stopped the beast's cannonball single-handedly stood no chance against Ghost. Chapter 646 Ghost Attack Alicia. Michael halted his steps. Judging by the voice, Michael could tell it was the old man who valiantly faced 20 or so men at the same time. As Michael expected, when he turned around, he saw the old man galloping towards Michael. The war between the two opposing armies completely stopped. The Flame Fair soldiers were on their knees, hoping Pentown and Ice Fair dukes would be merciful. Everyone stood far away from the ashen circle around Michael. His rings of flame torched everyone on its path, forming this circle. Except for the Duke's body, everything was nothing but ash. Looking at Xavier moving toward his son, Ethan quickly recalled everything that happened between Ghost and Peter. He leaped into the air and landed beside Xavier with Alicia. "Who are you?" the old man asked Michael. "I go by the name Ghost," Michael calmly answered the old man. To Michael's surprise, the old man's face twitched. A hint of shock and anger glimmered in his eyes. But the anger soon faded away from Xavier's eyes. "Do you know who I am?" asked Xavier. Michael noticed Alicia's cold gaze on him, and Michael just chose to ignore her completely. "No idea," Michael shrugged. When the surrounding soldiers heard Michael, they frowned. How could Ghost say he doesn't know the demon and the sword master of Aragoth? It was preposterous. Everyone in the Elon continent knew Xavier Belafort. They immediately thought Ghost was being arrogant. However, the old man looked into Ghost's eyes, realizing the young man really have no idea about his identity. "I am Xavier Belafort," the old man introduced himself. "Belafort, huh?" The last name of Alicia. Michael quickly made the connections, realizing the old coot was the cold bitch's family member, probably her grandfather. Still, Michael couldn't care less about Xavier or his family. "You put my grandson in the Guardian Guild's crosshair," said Xavier. Michael couldn't tell whether the old man was making a statement or being furious about what he had done to Peter, Alicia's brother. "Your grandson is just facing the consequences of his actions. Just like Duke Avon here." Michael looked at the mangled body of Duke Avon at his feet. "You humiliated him. He doesn't deserve that," Alicia growled. "This is not a place for this conversation. We have so much to take care of." Ethan tried to defuse the situation before it further escalated. He did not want his son Ghost to put on his Dark Lord robes and kill Xavier overnight. This chapter upload first at Novelbin. Net. If you want to read more chapters, please visit Novelnext. To experience faster update speed. Michael did not respond to Alicia. Instead, he looked at Ethan. "Sorry for the delay in the shipment, Lord Ethan. It won't happen again." When he was about to leave the place, Alicia stopped Michael again. "My grandfather didn't give you permission to leave." Ghost's lips curved upwards, forming an arrogant smirk. "I don't need your grandfather's permission to leave. I can leave whenever I want. This is a battlefield. Here, the commanders of the armies hold the power. When you are here, you're bound to obey the commanders." Michael was surprised to hear the weird rules. "Is that the rule?" Michael looked around calmly to see several soldiers nod, including Lord Ethan. Since Gaia was not with him, Michael didn't know the rules about the battlefield. To be honest, he didn't expect someone to come up with a rule like this. It made Michael wonder who put this rule. Luckily for Michael, the situation brought him a chance to put Alicia in her place. This war is between Flame Fair and Pentown allied with Ice Fair. Since you don't belong to either, what you did will be treated as a crime. Lord Xavier, he was a vampire. Ethan's voice turned grave. If it wasn't for his son appearing at that time, both he and Alicia would have been either turned or drained of blood. Instead of thanking Ghost, Xavier tried to bound Ghost with a rule which was very unlikely of Xavier. Ethan had a feeling this old man has something else in his mind. Whether it was revenge for what Ghost did to his grandson or something else, Ethan did not know. A glimmer of shock could be seen in the old man's eyes when Ethan revealed Duke's secret. Not only the Duke but the surrounding soldiers had also begun to murmur. Many gasped in shock. Vampire or not, he was a Duke and he's an outsider. Xavier looked at Michael. He killed a duke and it's a crime. You have to come with us peacefully to answer for your crime to His Majesty. Porter Forbes. Hearing the old man, Michael felt annoyed. These dumb weaklings were actually trying to arrest him. Usually, Michael would antagonize influential people like Xavier. However, Xavier belonged to the Belafort family. The ship of allying or being on friendly terms with them had long passed. Hence, Michael gave no shit about the old man. Besides, Michael was in a league of his own. Letting these puny families like Belafort bully him was the exact opposite of badassness. Looking at the gentle smile on Ghost's face fade away, Ethan's heart skipped a beat. This is getting annoying. If you want to stop me from leaving, go ahead. But remember this, I warned you, said Michael. Ethan saw the glimmering killing intent in his eyes. He killed the Duke to save me and Alicia. If His Majesty wants to hold anyone accountable, I will talk to him. Ethan interjected. He tried to calm the situation, but unfortunately, calming Ghost was not an option anymore. This chapter upload first at Novelbin. Net, I don't give a damn about her. Michael's words stunned everyone around. Who are we kidding here? You want to get back at me for what I did to Peter? Michael turned his cold gaze from Ethan to Xavier. You can think whatever you want, young man, replied Xavier. There was a calmness in his voice that even surprised Michael. And you are welcome to do whatever you want. Golden bolts of lightning crackled around Michael's hands. The sound of crackling lightning bolts amplified when the wind around Michael started to swirl. Every soldier in the vicinity took a step back in utter fear, except for Alicia, who stepped forward without a shred of fear in her eyes. To everyone's astonishment, Xavier took a step back, letting Alicia take the lead. He put his hands behind his back and watched Alicia unsheath her silver sword to fight Ghost. But suddenly, the bolts of lighting disappeared from his hand. The swirling wind died down and everything went back to normal. You think you can stop me? Ha ha ha, Michael chuckled. You think of me as your enemy, right? But to be honest, I don't. Michael slowly shook his head. Hearing these words, Ethan felt relieved. However, his relief was only short-lived. To be my friend, there are no standards. You can be a man, woman, rich, poor, or sick, I don't care. But to be my enemy, you need standards. Michael emphasized the word standard. His voice became colder. You are not in my league to be my enemy. In fact, no one is. Do you know why? Because I am in a league of my own. As he said, Michael released his aura of a fusion stage cultivator. Immediately, the others around Michael felt immense pressure on them. Some of them could hardly breathe. A veteran like Xavier and Ethan had only sensed such a powerful aura from a fusion stage cultivator. Did he reach the fusion stage? Ethan questioned himself. Alicia, stop! Ethan was caught off guard as Alicia dashed at Ghost with her sword raised. She boosted her speed with a spell that left a trail of ice on her steps. The temperature around them dropped by several degrees. Her eyes glimmered like diamonds. Even at this moment, Xavier remained calm instead of stopping his granddaughter. Honestly, Xavier wanted Ghost to defeat Alicia. Only that way, Alicia could untie the knot in her head. Ever since Ghost humiliated Peter, Alicia had been dwelling and burning with rage. Her anger even affected her relationship with Noah. Xavier noticed everything. Since Alicia was not someone who would listen to him obediently, Xavier wanted Alicia to learn the hard way. The old man lived long enough to see that sometimes they need to let go of their hatred to move forward. So Xavier hoped Alicia would accept her defeat in Ghost's hands and move forward with her life. He had seen many warriors moving forward with their lives once they got beaten by people who they deemed their lifelong enemies. In a few blinks of an eye, Alicia closed the gap between her and Ghost. When she reached him, she swung the sword as fast as she could. Michael simply retracted his black shield when her sword was just a few inches away from him, successfully parrying her attack. Chapter 647 Headmaster of Mazeroth returns back in Aquilon Realm. Wulfric finally returned to his office with his trusty white royal dragon. The office was divided into 3 areas. The first area of the office contained the headmaster's portraits as well as cabinets, and tables filled with Wulfric's instruments. There was also a fireplace. The second area contained the headmaster's desk and chair and was surrounded by bookcases. The third area was a small sitting room behind the desk. Wulfric looked tired. Dark circles could be seen around his eyes. When he plunged onto his chair, he sighed, taking a long, deep breath. "Master!" The white dragon landed on the table filled with parchments and books. Hearing the gentle voice of his dragon, Wulfric let out a tired smile. "What is it?" asked Wulfric, although he looked like he knew what she was going to ask him. "She made her choice. You cannot protect her and her family forever. Eventually, someone will notice you're tampering with the surveillance spell." Any oblivious man could sense the heaviness in the dragon's voice. It had been 20 years since Wulfric started to sneak into the Sky Hall and tamper with the surveillance spell put on Harriet and her family. The tampering with the spell took a toll on him as the spell was cast by several immortal beings. So tampering with them was no easy task. Destiny cannot be meddled with, Hadilth. "I am just merely letting destiny take its course," said Wulfric. His voice sounded calm, wise, and serene as always. "Isn't what you've been doing counts as meddling, master?" asked Hadilth. "I thought like that once, Hadith, and it cost the lives of millions. That was the price I paid to learn about my destiny." Hadilth was surprised to see the pain and grief in Wulfric's eyes. She had been with him for almost 5 centuries. In that time, she had never seen Wulfric harm a life, not a single one. So she wondered what he was talking about. "Maybe something happened before I met him?" thought Hadilth. "His power is growing at a rate we have never expected, master," said Hadilth to change Wulfric's mind. "Good. This time I meet him in person, unless he chose not to come here again." Wulfric turned his gaze to the copper bowl filled with crystal clear water on the table. Gradually, a dark cloud turned the clear water into a dark sludge. He could hardly see a silhouette of a man through the dark sludge. "What about the other one?" asked Wulfric. "At this point in time, he is much weaker than him. But Elder Galaniel seems to have something in mind." Elder Galaniel was the lady trying to enslave the god of light. Along with Devedon and Thorfinn, she planned to cast a forbidden spell on Noah when he was to step into his godhood. Although Hadilth felt Galaniel was planning something, the dragon didn't know what. After all, Galaniel might not be the strongest but the most cunning among the elders. Unlike the other elders, Galaniel lived among the mortals instead of in a pocket dimension. However, the mortals were oblivious to the fact they were living with the celestial being. She was a god walking the world. With a simple nod, Wulfric waved his hand as the black sludge slowly cleared. Eventually, when the black sludge completely disappeared, a bright light emerged from the bottom of the copper bowl. Luckily, the bright light was not as strong as the black sludge. Hence, Wulfric and Hadilth could see a young man dressed in white and a young woman in light blue robes walking through a lush valley. "There is a powerful source of energy in the pocket dimension," said Hadilth. "This chapter upload first at Novelbin. Net, if you want to read more chapters, please visit Novelnext.com to experience faster update speed. Any dangers?" asked Wulfric. "Not any they cannot prevail against," answered Hadilth. So they want Noah to grow stronger." Wulfric could sense Thorfinn's energy signature from the pocket dimension. A powerful energy source like the one in the pocket dimension would have at least several immortal beings protecting. But there were no such protectors in the pocket dimension. It was clearly a setup made by Thorfinn for Noah to become stronger. If he could see this, there was no doubt Andreas would do too. "Devedon's handiwork," Wulfric mumbled under his breath, looking at Yasmin Watson. A soul that didn't belong to her body was living inside. Wulfric could see it as clear as day. Despite Wulfric's attempts to keep the Winstons safer, the Sky Hall always managed to influence their lives somehow. Wulfric sighed inside. The puppeteer and the brutal Viking of Sky Hall had taken an interest in Noah's life. It was nothing short of bad luck for Noah. Wulfric just hoped Andreas could help Noah avoid these powerful beings. "Master, do you think Elder Galaniel is behind this?" asked Hadilf. Maybe, maybe not. But it's up to Andreas and Noah to navigate through the upcoming storm. As much as Wulfric liked to warn Andreas, he simply couldn't. A simple mistake on his part would put everyone he was trying to protect in danger. How long you're planning to protect them from the Sky Hall, Master? Asked Hadilf. Ever since Diana chose to protect her son, it was Wulfric who prevented the Sky Hall from hunting her down. After they sent Diana's child Dean to the prison Earth, Sky Hall ordered Diana to live and die as Diana. Otherwise, they would not only kill her but also kill her entire family except Noah. True to their word, they put on a curse that halted Harriet's cultivation. Despite the curse, Wulfric saw Harriet hunt down several cultivators stronger than her. The curse was still in her soul, yet she was somehow getting stronger. Chapter 648. The Vampire Death Squad, a few hours before Duke Avon's death. Before going to the outside world, Avon wanted to relax a bit. He made his way to the empty rooms in the corridor. When he twisted the golden knob, he was welcomed by a cozy yet empty room. Except for the antique brown sofa set and the fireplace, the room had nothing. He entered the door, closing the door behind him. Above the fireplace there was a lamp. He pulled the lamp as the scenery transformed. In a blink of an eye, the cozy room changed into a cozy tavern. As he appeared in the tavern through teleportation, capping hands and amazing but unknown scents welcomed him. It was near impossible to see what was outside the tavern through the large, stained glass windows. One thing was sure, suppose anyone stood outside, they would hear a lot of beer glasses clinking. The bartender, who was a man with a handlebar mustache and thick sideburns, was a little preoccupied behind the bar, but still managed to welcome Duke Avon with a wink. Duke Avon looked around the tavern in awe. Marble pillars supported the upper floor and the lights attached to them. The walls were loaded with hundreds of memorabilia, all signed and most likely donated by customers. These memorabilia mostly included skulls, heads of various animals, and pelts. For an exclusive vampire tavern, it was completely packed. Several long tables were occupied by happy, excited groups of vampires. Some were dancing on the table, while others cheered them on by clapping and yelling. The other, smaller tables were also occupied by vampires who were probably starting to reach the point of having drunk too much, though nobody seemed to mind. Even most of the stools at the bar were occupied. Avon heard about the tavern from Trista. Supposedly, this was where the vampires get together to blow off steam and do some interesting stuff. These were her words. To be honest, the tavern looked no different than any tavern in Flamefair. Though something about this palace made Avon feel at home, feel comfortable. Perhaps he was with his fellow vampires or just the sweet scent of fresh blood brewed by the bartender. On the outside, the vampires looked no different than mortals. However, some of the vampires automatically drew Avon's attention. One of them was a big burly man with a long beard and mane-like brown hair. He stood at least 7 feet, the tallest one in the tavern. He had a gigantic axe on his back, and he was practicing his aim by throwing little axes onto a wall. Argich. The man acknowledged Avon with a single nod and what sounded like a beastly growl. In stark contrast to the big burly man, a thin short figure with a receded forehead sat in the corner alone. He was feasting on a bloody steak that somehow didn't look like normal meat of any kind. Instead of forks and knives, he was eating them with his hands. Blood and sauces spurted out. Unlike the big burly man, he didn't do anything when he saw Avon. That was for the best, Avon thought, and moved on. Next, he saw a sturdy muscular man sharpening his red dagger. He wore a loose shirt that revealed his hairy yet chiseled chest. His eyes were calm, but there was something predatory about his eyes. With just a thick mustache, he looked extremely domineering. The final figure who caught Avon's eyes was an alluring blonde young woman. She was perfect to the point Avon couldn't remember meeting someone as beautiful as this woman. Her hourglass figure coupled with the dark thick lipstick would make anyone's heart skip a beat. Such a marvelous beauty. When she saw Avon staring at her without blinking an eye, she let out a seductive smile. Eventually, after so much gawking, Avon made his way to the bar counter. "Duke Avon, I presume," the bartender said in a thick, intimidating voice. In the flesh, Avon took off the dark hood covering his face because he saw no need to hide his face among them. "If I may, don't go with the hard liquor just yet." The bartender pointed at the bubbling red liquid inside a glass barrel. It was blood, not animal blood but pure mortal blood. This chapter upload first at Novelbin.net. If you want to read more chapters, please visit Novelnext.com to experience faster update speed. I am Donovan, and this, the bartender pulled down a lever, pouring fresh beer into a large mug. "Is on the house?" Avon grinned, taking the mug, raising it, and emptying the beer down his throat. Avon stunned Donovan by emptying the beer in one gulp. "You're not bad for a noble, Duke." Donovan poured a mug of beer himself before pouring another one for Duke Avon. "So how does it feel to be a, how do the mortals call us, vampires?" "Pretty powerful," Avon chuckled. Despite it being just beer he drank, he was feeling kinda drunk. The beer was brewed for the vampires and Duke Avon's body still hadn't completed changing yet. So just a mug of beer made Avon drunk. That had never happened before. As minutes passed by, Avon and Donovan went from strangers to buddies. Eventually, the topic turned to the vampires who stood out in the crowd. "So Donovan, I saw some dash, they are the Death Squad." Before even Avon could finish his question, Donovan answered his question. Avon's face was void of any expression. "Death Squad." Avon slightly tilted his head. "Think of them as elite assassins with a special set of skills. Take him for example." Donovan pointed at the big burly man who was still throwing axes to the wall. "That's Bear. He's anything but finesse. He opts for brutal, butchering his target switch axe style. When you make a statement or an example, that's your man." Afterward, Donovan pointed at the skinny man butchering the steaks with his yellow teeth. "He's Snake. He likes to keep to himself. Not a great conversationalist but a great killer. Like his name suggests, he poisons his targets. Mortal believes once you hit the fusion stage, you're immune to poisoning. Snake over there begged to differ. This chapter upload first at Novelbin.net. As Donovan mentioned, the people do believe that once a cultivator reaches the fusion stage, they would become immune to all poisons. However, that wasn't entirely true. Although a fusion stage cultivator would be immune to most poisons, there were several poisons that were powerful enough to kill them. They were extremely rare to get as they tend to be here in the vilest and most dangerous places. Avon expected Donovan to describe either the man sharpening his dagger or the angelic woman next. To his surprise, Donovan pointed at a duo of young vampires drinking and laughing at a table a couple of meters away from him. These two did not stand out in the crowd at all. As far as Avon could tell, except for their races, they looked pretty normal. One was a dwarf with all the typical dwarven features such as a long beard, a big pot belly, and messy long hair. The one sitting next to him was a typical elf with striking golden hair and a perfect jaw structure. The dwarf is Grey Wolf and the other is White Wolf. Don't let their looks fool you. When it comes to killing, their abilities are second to none. They specialized in making a high-profile assassination look like a street crime. A dwarf and an elf. Huh. Duke Avon looked at them with a surprised look on his face. In this world, the dwarves and elves hated each other for some reason. Their enmity was like a cat and a mouse. They didn't know why they hated each other. Nonetheless, they hated each other to the core. Many knew that if you put a dwarf and an elf in the same room, the odds of murder were pretty significantly higher. No one knows how exactly they became friends. We only know several decades ago, Grey Wolf was a commander under the Dwarven King and White served the Empress. Rumors have it that each was part of an elite group in their respective nations until something happened. Now here we are, two birds killing folks happily. It's almost like a fairy tale, Donovan exclaimed. Finally, Donovan turned his gaze toward the young woman who sat a couple of stools next to Avon. Despite being the prettiest woman in the tavern, no one dared to approach her. That's Spider. She was born to an elven father and a human mother. Hated her elven dad, and loathed her mother and authority. Ran away from home at 14. She spent her next couple of decades under the tutelage of Elder Lenora. But that's a story for another time. Spider lures her marks in the most old-fashioned of ways with her beauty. When they least expect it, she unleashes the fury like a woman scorned. She's an expert swordswoman and a nasty bitch with a bow and arrows. There's a rumor going around that she keeps her male victims' nether regions in a trophy case at home. Chapter 649. How Michael became Ghost Eye, almost 20 years ago on Earth. The Browning Street was emptier than usual due to all the riots in the nearby city. Buildings on the weather side of the Browning Street looked worn out, as though they would collapse any second. It had been a couple of decades since a building got new paint. The paved stone streets were all broken and messed up. As a result, the streets had more puddles than gray stones. Due to the high crime rate in this part of the city, the street was void of any taxis or crowds. Except for a couple of junkies in the dark alley, there was no one. Despite the afternoon time, the Browning Street looked gloomy because of the dark storm clouds above. The lines of buildings on either side were built to put as many people as possible within. Thus, the architecture looked like buildings made of matchboxes, no style and no class. They were built to reduce the slum population. In one of those buildings, painted with white but now turned gray, a man wearing a fedora looked down the street from the 20th floor. The man was way out of place as he wore a black tuxedo, Oxford shoes, a black tie, and a fedora hat. He was neither too young nor too old, probably mid-30s or early 40s. His stubble beard and hazel eyes gave him a friendly charm to woo any strangers to trust him. He looked at the street below, where an old man was lying in a pool of blood. His arms and legs looked crooked, as his head was mangled by hitting the ground with such force. Another one down. The man wearing the fedora smiled. He took out a notebook from his inner coat pocket and crossed a name off the list with a pencil. After putting the notebook and the pencil inside, he turned around and left the balcony. Silence fell over the Browning Street. Even up to this moment, no one had seen the dead body lying in the street. The junkies hiding in the dark alley were busy snorting white powder. This chapter upload first at Novelbin. Net if you want to read more chapters, please visit Novelnext. To experience faster update speed eventually, the man climbed down all the 20 stairs to the ground level. He threw one last look at the dead body before disappearing into one of the dark alleys. To an oblivious man, the man fell from his balcony and died. But only a few knew that it was an assassination. The dead man was a CEO of a pharmaceutical company who was living in the Browning Street until he could leave the country. He committed various frauds and pissed off too many powerful people. When these powerful people want a certain someone to disappear, they would call a shadow organization known as the Underworld. It was a glorified name for a society full of criminals, assassins, and drug kingpins. Since the CEO had his own special force people guarding him in what he thought was a safe house, the Underworld put their best to work. Spectre. He was the deadliest assassin in the world. Once someone ends up on Spectre's hit list, no one can save them, not even the most powerful law enforcement. After killing his target, Spectre calmly walked down the dark alleys. He always felt the need to do something else after an assassination. He called this feeling post-murder tension. Normally, he would take a long walk, go to a park, or visit some exclusive escorts. I am getting bored. Spectre stretched his muscles. Not only physically, but he was also mentally exhausted. When he took out his first target, he was 15 years old. It had been 30 years since he entered the assassination business. The spark of killing people once he had slowly dimmed out. But he knew very well that there was no retirement for an assassin like him. There would be always more people who need killing, and the clients always liked to work with the best. The Underworld was not a place he could go and sign out his retirement. The second-best assassin could always try to end him so they could become the number one. The best way he could come up with was getting a disciple, a murdering protege, or a group of prodigies, train them and let them do his work. That way, Spectre could sit back and enjoy his life a bit. He would be 40 next month, and it would take at least a decade for him to train someone. Unfortunately, there wasn't a place to get prodigies with murdering brains. He wanted someone young, someone who didn't fear the strong, and someone who would be willing to kill without blinking an eye. As he was pondering about his future, he heard a commotion nearby. His ears twitched. Usually, Spectre wouldn't poke his nose into where it doesn't belong. But for some reason, he felt curious. "What the heck?" Spectre shrugged and followed the sound of the commotion. After taking several steps, he reached a corner. He peeked around the corner, standing in the darkness to see a group of men beating the life out of a young kid. The men showed no mercy to the kid. The poor kid looked like he was 10 or 9. He was skin and bones as though he hadn't eaten in weeks. Little twat asking for more than he deserves. What did we tell you about taking this route, huh? This chapter upload first at Novelbin. Net the men yelled at the kid without taking a break from kicking the kid. But despite their beating, the kid didn't cry. Instead, he curled into a ball, covering his face and abdomen as though he was used to getting beaten. "If we see you in this route again, I will choose one of those little bitches and put the product in their bellies. Got it?" A bald, burly man with a body full of tattoos spat on the kid. If Spectre wanted, he could beat the crap out of the 3 of them in a few minutes. Normally, he would have because it was a good outlet for post-murder tension. Even if Spectre killed them, no one would bat an eye. Why? Because they all had a black mamba tattooed on their necks. As a dweller of the underworld, Spectre knew every criminal organization there is. This particular gang specialized in drug and weapons trafficking. As far as law enforcement considered, these guys did not exist. They had no passport, no identity card, or any bank accounts in their names. Suppose Spectre killed them, the gang would clear the body and evidence for him because the last thing they would do was seek the help of the police. However, Spectre did not do such a thing. Instead, his focus was on the little kid on the ground. After such a beating, a grown man would cry, let alone a 9-year-old kid. At first, Spectre thought the kid had lost consciousness, but he was proven wrong when the kid uncurled himself, crawled towards a dumpster, and got to his feet using the dumpster as support. His ragged clothes were torn and had countless holes. When he finally got back to his feet, Spectre saw the boy throw out blood due to the beating. "What are you holding in your hands?" Spectre saw the kid holding something inside his shirt. Even when he was getting kicked like a human football, the kid curled into a ball, protecting something. To Spectre's surprise, it was a piece of bread. The kid wiped off the blood running down his mouth and finally stopped throwing out blood. For a moment, Spectre lost his interest in the kid. It looked like a typical orphan stealing bread from the wrong place. Thousands of kids died of hunger each year. There was nothing Spectre could do or nothing he would do. As far as he was concerned, these kids were born to suffer. When he was about to turn and leave, Spectre saw something that made him frown. Instead of running away, the kid went to the doorstep and spat on the door. "One day, I am going to kill every single one of you." The kids spat at their doorsteps. Spectre's mind played a trick on him by creating a dark cloud around the kid for a moment. As a killer, Spectre could tell the difference between a born killer and a temper tantrum-throwing kid. That kid wasn't being angry. He was just giving Spectre a glimpse of the killer hiding within him. When the kid turned around, he saw the predatory eyes of the kid. They were not of an angry kid but a killer's. A true-born killer. What an interesting find! Spectre was amused and slightly excited. Thus, he followed the kid who limped away from the door. Thanks to the dark alleys and way too many dumpsters, Spectre was able to follow the kid without getting detected. Still, the kid surprised him by turning back, looking around to see if anyone was following him. Spectre felt like he was following a tricky little assassin. Eventually, the kid reached what looked like an abandoned manor near a stinky, polluted river. The water in the river was as black as tar and smelled like a public toilet and a used diaper with a baby. Near the manor, Spectre noticed several large concrete tubes. Subsequently, several children and a young woman were standing inside the tube. When they saw the limping kid, the children cheered. "Kind Heart Orphanage." Spectre read the worn-out board handing on the manor. He wondered why these children were outside instead of staying inside the manor. Luckily, there were several construction materials between Spectre and the kid, so he used them as a cover to get close enough to see what was happening. But when Spectre got close, he noticed the brand new state-of-the-art CCTV cameras fit around the manor. Interesting. Spectre couldn't help but wonder why an orphanage needs high-tech CCTV cameras. No matter how many cameras they had, they weren't a challenge for the #1 assassin in the world. He moved swiftly through the concrete materials, avoiding the cameras like a fish in the sea. Eventually, Spectre reached a concrete tube next to the tube where the children were staying. The novel will be updated first on this website. Come back and continue reading tomorrow, everyone. He would have shared the one biscuit given to him by the thugs, but if he ever faints on the street, the thugs would not only beat all the children to near death but also kill a randomly chosen kid from the orphanage to make an example and to entertain themselves. This chapter upload first at Novelbin.net. If you want to read more chapters, please visit Novelnext.com to experience faster update speed. Of course, they could give Michael more than a biscuit, but they wanted Michael to look as pitiful as possible so the lawmen would take pity instead of bothering to search him. More than logic, the thugs went with their instincts to torture them. So they made the lives of the kids hellish. No, you need this more than me. I am not hungry. Ruby shook her head. I am not stupid, Ruby. Eat this, or I will shove it down your throat myself. Spectre almost chuckled, hearing the little man threatening the girl. As for you all, I will go for a run tonight. I will definitely get something from that fat baker. Ruby immediately shook Michael's body. No, the last time you tried to steal from him, he almost killed you. Her voice stuttered. To everyone's surprise, Michael just chuckled. But here I am. He beats me, but that fatso doesn't take back what I take from him. A pie might be enough for all of you to share. No, Mikey, you don't have to do this. We are not hungry. Some of the other kids who were old enough to see what was going on shook their heads. Just shut up, everyone. I got this. Spectre was amazed by the kid's confidence and the way he talked. Just by looking at the beating he took, Spectre could tell how the kid's life must be. Still, he was willing to go through a beating again just to bring some food to the others. Even a heartless killer like Spectre felt pity for Michael. Are you going to eat this or not? Michael asked Ruby. Seeing the resolve in his eyes, she knew there was no point arguing with him. Finally, Ruby took a bite out of the bread. It wasn't a big bite as she had to share it with the others. 1 piece of bread for 7 people. It was hardly enough for anyone, but they managed to share it with everyone. The kids even picked up the crumbs that fell to the ground and ate them in hunger. While they were eating the bread, Michael came outside the concrete tube away from the eyes of everyone in it. This chapter upload first at Novelbin.net. Spectre peeked outside to see the kid looking at the sky with a wide-open mouth. Spectre wondered why he was doing that. In a few moments, Spectre got his answer. The kid was waiting for the rain droplets to go down his throat. Obviously, they wouldn't be able to drink the sewage water in the river, so the only clean water source was rain. Spectre waited patiently, looking at the kid catching the rain droplets with his mouth. Slowly, seconds turned minutes, and minutes turned hours. Eventually, the drizzle became a heavy downpour. Even Spectre, who wore clothes from head to toe, shivered in the cold. So it wasn't a surprising image to see the children shivering in the concrete tube. They only had each other to get some body warmth. At this moment, everyone closed their eyes, having dreams and nightmares except 2, Michael and Spectre. The latter's eyes were fixed on Michael. As an assassin, Spectre had excellent eyesight, even in the dark. He could see the kid sharpening a rusty knife. Spectre didn't know where Michael managed to get the knife, but that wasn't the point. He was more curious why the kid was sharpening the knife this late in the night. "What are you up to, kid?" said Spectre. He watched Michael like a hawk. Eventually, he saw Michael crawl out of the concrete tube. He looked at the manor until the last light in a room snuffed out. After darkness completely surrounded the manor, Spectre saw Michael hasting to the manor. Despite the bruises and lack of nutrition, Spectre saw Michael run and parkour over the concrete materials like an expert runner. It was as though the darkness had boosted the kid's power and healed his wounds. Spectre followed Michael, hardly making any noise, and saw Michael climb up the manor as swiftly as a monkey. Standing on the ground, Spectre saw Michael slowly opening a window as quiet as a ninja. "That kid is a natural," Spectre's brows arched. Michael even used the thunderclaps to mask his footsteps and movements. It was simply genius. After Michael entered the manor through the window, Spectre climbed the manor in a few blinks of an eye. He slowly followed the footsteps of Michael into the mansion. As soon as Spectre entered the manor, he was stunned by what he saw. A spacious hall filled with wooden boxes containing high-grade weapons and armor. They had enough weapons to arm a small militia. Every single weapon was military grade worth millions. To Spectre's surprise, there were not as many guards as there should have been. Crouching on one of the ceiling beams way above the wooden crates, Spectre managed to locate Michael and the single guard snoring. Like the other thugs who beat up Michael, the guard snoring also had several tattoos on his body, including the black mamba on his neck. He was a big bald guy with a huge belly who could crush a scrawny kid like Michael with his one arm. Judging by the empty glass liquor bottle around the big thug, Spectre could tell unless a grenade went off near him, nothing could wake up the big guy. Michael slowly crouched to the big thug from behind, as quiet as a mouse. Something told Spectre that Michael had done this before. "Grrrrgsh." Suddenly, the big man growled, swatting the mosquito on his cheek. Michael halted his steps, hid behind one of the crates, and waited for a few minutes to confirm the big thug was still asleep. A few minutes later, he resumed his steps toward the big thug. Currently, there was at least 5 meters distance between Michael and the big thug. Spectre curiously stared at the scene unfolding. Chapter 651 How Michael Became Ghost Eye Step by step. Michael moved toward the thug, making as little noise as possible. He held the rusty knife in one hand, and a polythene bag used to contain a pistol in the other. When Michael was just a meter away from the thug, he halted his steps, looked around, and took a deep breath, calming himself down. He slowly stood up to match the thug's height. Slowly, he walked toward the thug before plunging the dagger into the thug's throat as fast as he could. Despite his scrawny figure, his strength surprised Spectre. It wasn't easy for a kid like him to penetrate the thug's thick skin with a rusty knife. But Michael made it look so simple and easy. As soon as the rusty knife entered the thug's throat, he growled. Blood spurted out from the wound, but before it could spray over the table and the floor, Michael put the polythene bag around the thug's head. The thug violently struggled. Due to his drunk state, the thug wasn't as strong as he would normally be. Michael wrapped his thin hand around the thug's neck, siding the rusty knife from one end to another. When Michael's knife reached the larynx, his rusty knife met resistance. As an assassin who slit countless throats, Spectre knew how hard it is to actually kill someone by cutting human throats. It wasn't as easy as the movies showed them to be. Son of... The thug tried to turn his head, grabbing Michael by his neck. However, Michael began to stab the thug's eyes. The thug squirmed, frantically shivering. After stabbing the thug's eye through the polythene bag, Michael immediately followed up by stabbing the thug's throat right in the center. The blood loss, coupled with Michael's surprisingly strong grasp, made the thug slowly lose consciousness. To Spectre's surprise, Michael did not stop stabbing the thug. He ensured the thug stood no chance of surviving or fighting back. Thud! Finally, the thug fell to the ground with the chair. In a blink of an eye, Michael got on top of the fat thug. He plunged the rusty knife through the thug's chin, making sure he didn't yell or scream. Eventually, after so many stabs and much struggle, Michael rolled down the thug's body to the ground. His little chest rose and fell repeatedly. The polythene bag around the thug's head ensured blood from forming a puddle on the ground. Taking a few minutes of rest on the ground, Michael pulled himself to his feet. "This is what you get for hurting Ruby?" Michael kicked the thug right between his legs to vent the remaining anger in his heart. Silence fell over the warehouse for a moment. In an utter silence, Spectre watched everything with an amused smile on his face. Finally, he had found a proper prodigy to train and impart his skills. He had seen many children of famous killers. You don't need to die to become Ghost Kid. From now on, you don't exist. You're coming with me to a place where no one knows you, and you don't know anyone. In return, I will put the others in a much better place, a real orphanage, and put enough money to take care of themselves the rest of their lives. This was the first hardest decision Michael had ever taken in his life. He trusted a stranger to leave everything behind, even the one person he loved the most, Ruby, so they could have a better life. As far as Ruby and the others were concerned, Michael died in an explosion in the warehouse. As a result, the police rounded them up and sent them to a much better place where an anonymous donor made a huge sum of deposits in their names to live a lavish life for the rest of their lives. Even to this date, Ruby visited Michael's grave every month like clockwork and named her first son after Michael. Before Spectre went mad and ordered a hit on an orphanage Michael built, Michael always kept tabs on Ruby and saw her from a distance. Seeing her with a family of her own always made everything he did worth it. Not being able to meet Ruby in person was Michael's only regret on Earth. Chapter 652 Hunting Ghost Inside the Floating Castle. Rowena sat inside her room filled with cold mist, meditating. Her eyes twitched when he heard footsteps. Slowly, Rowena opened her eyes to see Bai Ning entering the room. She held a golden parchment in her hand. "He didn't reject my application, did he?" asked Rowena. "He didn't, Holy Maiden," said Bai Ning. To her surprise, she saw Rowena sighing. "I expected that." Rowena rose to her feet with grace. The mist slowly moved toward Rowena as she was sucking all the mist in the room. "How long do I have to study there?" asked Rowena. 1 year for each specialization." 4 years, said Rowena. She did not like to waste her time studying, but she had no choice. As a holy maiden, she needed to be proficient in each specialization. Deep down, Rowena knew studying in Mazeroth was not a waste of time. Just she had never attended any secrets or academies before in her life, so it was going to be a new experience for her. "You will start your academics in the House of Alchemists. Race everything you need, Holy Maiden." With a flick of her wrist, Bai Ning took out several items including jade green robes from her space ring. Rowena picked up the silver parchment and opened it. "Ruby, huh? Did you pick this name?" asked Rowena. Her face was void of any expression that Bai Ning couldn't tell whether she liked the name or not. "You have to go to Mazeroth in 3 days, Holy Maiden," said Bai Ning. Throwing the silver parchment aside, Rowena locked her gaze with Bai Ning. "When were you planning to tell me about the vampires, Bai Ning?" asked Rowena. Until Rowena saw the royal news, even she didn't know about the vampires. But she was sure the Sky Hall knew about their existence. It made Rowena wonder why the Sky Hall elders chose not to reveal their existence to her. For a moment, Bai Ning didn't say a word. Silence fell over them. It wasn't a decision made by Bai Ning. Instead, the elders ordered her not to share the vampire's existence with the Holy Maiden. They wanted the Holy Maiden as far as possible from what was happening outside. This chapter upload first at Novelbin. Net if you want to read more chapters, please visit Novelnext.com to experience faster update speed. Did the elders tell you not to? Bai Ning's heart skipped a beat. Rowena calmly questioned Bai Ning as though she had read the old woman's mind. Bai Ning's silence was more than enough for Rowena to know the answer to her question. "When I ascend to the throne, there will be many changes, Bai Ning." Rowena's words were full of authority and dominance. Although Rowena was chosen to be the Holy Maiden, she would get her full power and authority over the elders only after she ascended to the throne. Chapter 653 Puma. The hunter using the X-ray vision. Michael noticed several traps on his way. One of the traps was connected to a large log above. Once he trips the wire, it would bring down the log in an arc, knocking down the poor soul. To get more information from this hunter, Michael needed to get out of his sight. His mind quickly formed a plan. He slowed down, letting the hunter get a bit close. When the hunter was directly behind him, Michael threw the sword, slashing the trip wire. As soon as the sword cut the wire, a large log came down, swinging. With his superior agility, Michael jumped on the log at the speed of a lightning flash and leaped away from its trajectory. The log traveled swinging in the air. For a moment, the hunter's sight moved from Michael. Michael heard a rustling sound. The hunter slid under the log to escape it. Fortunately, the split-second distraction enabled Michael to do something the hunter never had expected. He used the arch energy to get to a treetop with a single leap. Michael jumped from tree to tree, canceling the noise with arch energy. The traps, the quotes the hunter spoke, and everything about this place told Michael the man was obsessed with hunting. A man such as him would have keen senses and tracking abilities. So Michael left no trail for him. After leaping off the log, Michael's feet never touched the ground as he flew a few inches above the ground. Not enough for the hunter to differentiate between running and floating. After leading several trees, Michael willed the system to equip his black dress. Michael manipulated the darkness to cover himself. It was enough for him to blend in with the dark night. Hanging on a tree way above the ground, Michael used thermal vision to track down the hunter. To the naked eye, the hunter was invisible due to the ghillie suit and the darkness. But to Michael, the hunter was clear as day. Michael adjusted his X-ray vision to take a closer look at the hunter slowly moving forward. The man crouched down, looking for food prints or disturbances on the ground to locate Michael. Michael felt like a predator. His mind almost screamed at him to make some clicking noises, just for fun. "Where are you?" the hunter asked Michael. Despite the lack of tracks, the hunter remained calm. He almost sounded amused. The hunter eventually looked up to see if Michael was up in the trees. "I can hear your heartbeat, ghost." To Michael's astonishment, an arrow soared through the hair, hitting the tree just missing his face by a couple of inches. If it wasn't for Michael's superior reflex, the arrow would have penetrated his head right away. Michael immediately leaped onto another tree and yet again, the hunter hit the tree with an arrow as fast as Michael's leap. "Hear my heart beat, huh?" Michael smirked. "I gotta give it to you, ghost. You are a damn good climber," the hunter said. There was a bit of admiration in his voice. "Thank you. I would shake your hands, but..." Michael's words were abruptly cut short when an arrow hit the bark beside him. "I will shake your hands." The hunter paused for a moment. "After I cut your hand out of your body? Is that so?" Michael said, rapidly leaping from one tree to another. Since the trees were closer to each other, the hunter wasn't surprised by his acrobatics. In stark contrast, Michael was using arch energy to leap back and forth. To disorient the hunter once again, Michael ordered the system to form a shield around himself, preventing the hunter from hearing his heartbeat. The hunter's arrows finally stopped hitting the trees. He looked around, frowning behind his suit made of dark leaves. This chapter upload first at Novelbin.net. If you want to read more chapters, please visit Novelnext.com to experience faster update speed. While the hunter was searching for Michael, he took out a dagger and cut his palm. As soon as Michael's blood gushed out of his palm, the hunter fired an arrow precisely at the point where Michael touched the tree with his bloody palm. Michael heard the hunter take a long whiff as though he was smelling the blood. Darkness, hearing heartbeats and smelling blood. He's a vampire. Michael connected the dots and learned the hunter's origins. There was no doubt in his mind. To be more sure, Michael decided to see if the hunter has a regenerative ability. The APD healed the cut on his palm. When the blood disappeared from his hand, Michael leaped from tree to tree. In a few moments, he closed the gap between them and appeared right on top of the hunter. Michael dropped from the tree, landing a few inches behind the hunter. Immediately, Michael slashed the dagger left and right, cutting the hunter's back. Caught off guard, the hunter roared. Blood spurted out from the hunter's cuts. Michael pulled out the camouflage on his body. As expected, Michael saw the wound closing up. With a speed beyond mortal limits, the hunter turned around, swinging the longbow in his hand. Michael quickly leaped back. "You're a vampire," said Michael. The man before him was tall, muscular with broad shoulders, and had a thick mustache. Moreover, his eyes glimmered with killing lust. "Argich!" the man roared as Michael saw the two long fangs. Even in the darkness, the two fangs were visible to the naked eye. A slight surprise emerged in Michael's eyes. Compared to Avon, the vampire before him was several times more menacing. The vampire did not attack Michael head-on but throw a smoke bomb at his feet to disappear from Michael's sight. The thick cloud of gas quickly surrounded Michael, preventing him from following the vampire's tracks. The vampire's speed surprised Michael. He did not use arch energy to boost his speed. Rather, it was purely skills honed by probably hundreds of years of practice or hunting.